Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Good morning.
Good morning. Calling this meeting to order. All matters noticed on this agenda in any category may be considered for action as listed. Any item not so noticed may not be considered. Items listed on this agenda may be considered in any order at the discretion of the chairperson. The mission of the OCFEC is celebration of Orange County's communities, interest, agriculture, and heritage with results justifying resources expanded. We're going to move on to the Pledge of Allegiance, and I'm going to ask Michelle if she can please lead us.
Okay, please stand. Put your right hand over your heart. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance
to the flag
of the United States
of America
and to the republic for which it
stands,
one nation, under God, indivisible,
with
liberty
liberty
and
and
justice for all.
for all.
Thank you, Michelle. The board will now go into closed session. While in session, Summer will work with the public to prepare for public comment. She will provide instructions for anyone who would like to speak. Board, please use the number provided to you and hang up.
Summer, we're back from closed session. Sandra, are you there?
I am.
Okay.
Thank you, Michelle. The Board of Directors considered the advice of counsel of the matters identified in the closed session of the agenda. Nothing more to report. I will now turn it over to Michelle for the CEO announcement and updates.
Okay, I think, Summer, can you take roll call?
Yes,
real quick?
I will do that. I also, for the board members, I have used the dial in option. When you come back into the meeting, you are muted currently right now. So to unmute yourself to be able to speak, you press *6 on your phone. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and take roll. Chair Cervantes.
Yes.
Vice Chair Rubalcaba Garcia.
Yes.
Director Ruiz.
Present.
Director Bonaris. I know she's on the phone here. Let me try one more time. Director Bonaris.
Present.
Thank you. Director Aiken.
Present.
Director LaBelle. Director LaBelle. Is he not quite back on yet?
If he's on the phone, it's *6 to unmute.
Director LaBelle, *6 to unmute. He may not be back on yet. It doesn't look like it. I'll move on and circle back. Director Pham.
Here.
And Director Kovacevic. I think we're still waiting for.
Summer, Director Kovacevic just texted me that he needs the Zoom connection again.
Okay.
Are you able to send that, or would you like me to?
I can do that. I'll just.
You know what? I'll have him go on the website. If you could also send in the email, Summer.
I'm doing that right now.
He's on. Director LaBelle is
Okay.
on.
Doug's here.
Thank you, Director LaBelle.
Let me know when we're ready.
Summer, I think I just heard someone log on. Is that Director
I-
Kovacevic?
I did as well, but I'm not
Yes.
seeing.
Okay, good.
Thank
Sorry.
you.
Very
That's
good.
okay. Thank you.
We're all
All right,
back.
we're all here.
Okay, thank you everyone for being patient. This is Michelle Richards. First and foremost, we'd like to welcome new board member Nick Kovacevic. We had an opportunity to provide Director Kovacevic with an introductory walking tour of the fairgrounds with masks, of course. And we learned that he and his family are huge fair fans. So we look forward to working with you, Nick, and welcome to the fair family. I'm very happy to introduce our new Chief Business Development Officer, Joan Hamill. And I know Joan is there. Wave if you're live, Joan. Joan brings over 20 years of experience at the OC Fair and Event Center and has led multiple departments over the years, including community relations, exhibits, education, and entertainment. She not only brings broad knowledge of the fair industry and the OC Fair and Event Center, but a passion and commitment for what we do. Joan is a strong leader amongst her peers and has earned their trust and respect. She is committed to helping us move forward into the future and is excited about being part of the team that will do that. And I'm very proud to have her as part of our executive team. Now, I would be remiss in not also thanking Doug Lofstrom, who I know is Zooming with us today. Doug has served the OC Fair in many capacities, including as a former CEO. I asked Doug to come back and assume my old position as Chief Business Development Officer to provide leadership in the interim and to help in the recruiting process. Doug, thank you once again for showing your loyalty to the OC Fair and stepping up once again to help us. We trust you're enjoying your retirement from the OC Fair for the third time. Hopefully doing a little lawn bowling, maybe trail riding, and enjoying a good glass of wine. We can't thank you enough for helping out. Thank you so much, Doug. When we last met, the board made the very difficult but necessary decision to cancel the 2020 OC Fair due to the health and safety concerns related to the current pandemic. Since that time, we have refocused the staff from preparing for the annual OC Fair to preparing for the future. Our workforce is now concentrating on 4 key initiatives. Number 1 is essential business operations involving facilities, security, human resources, and accounting. That staff is rotating on site here now. 2, keeping our guests connected with the OC Fair. We're planning for a virtual fair, which we're excited to tell you more about later today in the meeting. 3, closing the revenue gap by working with promoters on potential vehicle-based events and spectator-free sporting events now that the county has received approval to move into stage 2 of the state's reopening plan. And 4, developing critical back to work and back to business health and safety protocols and detailed procedures, which will be implemented as employees fully return to working on site and we are able to once again host events with large mass gatherings. In addition, we've been able to reschedule a number of canceled events that were scheduled in the spring and add some new events to the fall calendar. We have rescheduled 11 canceled concerts in the Pacific Amphitheater for 2021, 10 hangar events, and 10 action sports arena performances. The team was able to work individually with customers that instead of requesting refunds, have now moved their ticket and Super Pass purchases forward to 2021, allowing us to retain over $1.7 million in ticket revenue. And now that the county has received approval to move into stage 2 of the state's reopening plan, stay tuned for the return of the farmers market, the reopening of Centennial Farm and the outdoor Medal of Honor courtyard and Skyhawk Circle at Heroes Hall, and the return of training activities at the Equestrian Center. So more to come on that as we put those plans together. We have also focused on cutting expenses where we can, developing a budget reforecast for 2020, which we will share with you later in the meeting. I also wanted to follow up on a previous question from a member of the public regarding the status of our agreement with OC Animal Care to serve as a large animal evacuation site during emergencies. As reported previously, OC Fair and Event Center staff has been trying for quite a while to work with the team at OC Animal Care to update the previous agreement. But as I stated earlier, we continue to honor the expired agreement. I sent a letter to our contact at the agency on May 7th, and I'm happy to report that she has responded, and we are now in development discussions regarding an updated agreement. Some very important news late on Friday, May 22nd. I was notified through an emailed letter of Spectra's intent to terminate their current contract for the operation of the Orange County Marketplace. On Wednesday, May 27th, I also received a copy of an email from the general manager of the marketplace informing vendors of Spectra's decision to terminate the agreement. OC Fair and Event Center has sent a response to Spectra, and the board will determine how to move forward. So I can stop here for any questions or continue with the financial update. Board members, if you have any questions on anything reported, let me know. Otherwise, I'll continue.
Michelle, this is Doug. Could you briefly go through the protocols that will be in place based on COVID-19 when we do open up for the various events that will be held on site?
Sure. We have drafted and continue to refine very detailed procedures for both event promoters that they have to follow, as well as when we have employees return to work. Return of employees would include a daily check-in with temperature taking, with social distancing, wearing masks, etc. Frequently cleaning of our office space. With regard to events, we're going to need to take those on a case-by-case basis. We have not yet been cleared for large mass gatherings, and that probably won't come until late stage 3 or stage 4, but we want to be prepared. And so we have drafted an exhibit that will be included with all of our rental agreements, requiring basic health and safety procedures, and then a detailed plan to be submitted by each promoter that has to be cleared before they would be allowed to have their event on site. We're working closely with the Orange County Healthcare Agency on those approvals as those procedures are written. The state has released all of the counties now to work with their local healthcare agency on those approvals. So they're taking it on a county by county basis. So when we have those documents in final form, I'll be happy to share that with the public, and of course the full board will review those as well.
Michelle, this is Natalie. I'm not sure if this is the appropriate time, but can we agendize the Spectra contract for the next meeting so that we can discuss it in more detail?
Yes, absolutely. Yes, thank you. Any other questions? Okay, let's go to the next slide. I don't think I have control over the slides anymore. Jason or Summer, if you could advance to the next one.
Stand by.
Or if you want to shoot control over to me. There we go. Okay. For the 4 months ending April 30th, 2020, year-to-date revenue is unfavorable to budget by $1.85 million. And of course, that's no surprise. You can see the full effect of canceled events is now evident. Operating expenses year-to-date are favorable to budget by $2.56 million. That is largely due to our hiring freeze, the elimination of our part-time event staff, and then certainly a focus on cost containment by staff overall. As a result, we are showing that net proceeds are favorable to budget by $711,000 at this point. Cash and cash equivalents total $53.4 million at the end of April, which is a 1.3% increase over the same period in 2019. And that completes my CEO update for this month.
Michelle, if I may interject real quickly, if you click on the PowerPoint itself on the screen, you should be able to advance to the next slide.
Got it. I think I've got it now.
Okay.
Okay. Sandra, I'll turn it back to you. Sandra, can you hear us?
Yes, sorry
Okay,
there.
good. No worries. Back to you for the minute.
Okay, so next item is an action item, and those are for the minutes. Board meeting held April 23rd, 2020, and board meeting held April 27, 2020. I think we can do both of them at the same time, no?
Chair, this is Ashley Aiken. I make a motion that we move both the minutes for April 23rd and April 27th.
Second, this is Doug.
Okay, Summer, roll call, please.
Chair Cervantes,
Yes.
Vice Chair Rubalcaba Garcia,
Yes.
Director Ruiz,
Yes.
Director Bonaris,
Yes.
Director Aiken,
Yes.
Director LaBelle,
Yes.
Director Pham,
Yes.
and Director Kovacevic.
Yes.
Great, thank you, Summer. Do we have public comments before or after the matters of public comment?
We do have members for public comment. Yes, we do. I would like to call Lisa Sabo at this time to speak.
Okay, I'm here. I'm unmuted. Am I unmuted?
Yeah, you're good, Lisa. Go ahead.
Okay, thanks. Boy, it just caught me off guard. I'm sorry. But welcome everyone, and thank you so much for doing this meeting via Zoom, and we just really appreciate all of the directors and the whole FAIR staff and Michelle. We are just so happy that you are on as CEO. And again, I'm Lisa Sabo. I'm the president of the Orange County Fairgrounds Preservation Society. And just to give the new director a little history of our society, we started quickly. We pulled together in 2007, July of 2007, when the fairgrounds got slipped into the budget bill for sale. And so we formed a committee and we fought 2.5 hard years, eventually with the ending in a lawsuit. And we were able to get the fairgrounds off of the market to stay incredible public assets of our Orange County community today. And so our society continues to go, and we just so appreciate all the FAIR board members today. I'm also a horse trainer over at the Equestrian Center, and we're super excited in pulling together all the COVID rules, and so we can have a reopening of the Equestrian Center. And another little thing about my background, which many of you probably don't know, is I am a graduate A Pony Clubber from the United States Pony Club, which is an organization. We do have a pony club at the Fairgrounds Equestrian Center. And Pony Club, it used to be just 21 and under, but the last 10 years they've opened it up to horse masters also. So we have a large adult group, because Pony Club primarily emphasizes a lot of horsemanship activities, and they have ratings. It's very similar to a Girl Scout, Boy Scout type group where they have levels and ratings. So, you know, we're always teaching, and this is one thing that I'm super excited about incorporating now into our teaching, because we're always talking about viruses and horses that are sick. And many times, I know all the horse trainers have dealt with this for years, sick horses, and we all know which disease, oh, the horse has this. And there is a type of coronavirus that the horses can get. It's different than what we get. And if they get that disease, we know exactly how to handle that particular disease and how to, you know, whether that disease is good for hand washing, shirt changing, you know, shoe washing, because some are passed through the manure. And so we're excited about continue that teaching, but also incorporate the whole COVID teaching for humans and recognizing, you know, temperature, pulse, respiration, and that kind of stuff. So we're excited to eventually reopen our doors and do some horsemanship teaching, of course, at a distance with masks on, but also educating our public about whys. I mean, this has just been such an interesting last 10 weeks, I think 20 or whatever, how many weeks it's been, with all the news and what we're learning about COVID constantly. But it's
Okay, Lisa,
interesting for me from my
that's
background.
time.
Oh, okay. Oh, that was the time. Okay, sorry.
Sorry.
I didn't know that. Thank you. Sorry for going on.
It's okay.
Director Cervantes, this is Director Bonaris. I just want to make sure that the doorbell ring is the end of 3 minutes.
It is, Barbara. I'm sorry. I'm doing the timing. So I did not.
I'm sorry.
It's okay.
And Director Bonaris, once in a while, it's okay to let people finish. But yes,
Okay.
we do know that it's 3 minutes. Thank you.
So just
Sorry, you guys.
No, that's okay. I needed to know because I'm on the phone and I wasn't sure if that was somebody ringing in, and that's why I needed to know, and that's why I asked the question. And I know we have a lot of people online, and that I just want to make sure that we all understand. There it is. Thank you.
Okay, Gibran Stout, when you're ready. Gibran, are you still on the line?
Summer, can we let the public know who the next 4 or 5 people are that we're going to call so that they're
ready?
Unmute.
No problem at all. Gibran Stout, followed by Leanne Cazolis, and then Janine Robbins. And if Gibran doesn't come on, if Leanne wants to go ahead and start, we'll come back to Gibran.
Can anybody hear me?
Is this Gibran?
This is Leanne Cazolis.
Okay, Leanne, go right ahead.
Okay, super. So I am working with some of my fellow equestrians and Michelle to develop the safe return of lessons plan for members of the public at the Equestrian Center. Up to this point, since the coronavirus appeared, we have only been allowing people who board their horses at the Equestrian Center to come to the property to care for their horses and for riding. But as the state opens up and restrictions are eased, we're delighted to hear from Michelle that we have the green light from the state to develop and submit a plan through Michelle to the OC Healthcare Agency and Dr. Quick's office to allow the safe return of horseback riding lessons to members of the public. And we will start with those that were taking lessons before the quarantine shut down and adding in more riders as space permits. We know that these kids and adults are eager to get back to the property to see their 4-legged equine friends, and we know that the lesson horses are equally excited to see their 2-legged friends. During this time, horsemanship classes have been happening online, so lots of riders were able to keep up with their knowledge and learning. The lesson horses were also sending out some virtual greeting cards to let their riders know that they missed them and especially missed getting the good treats like carrots and apples. Our reopen plan includes many of the things we've already been doing. Everyone is required to wear a face covering. Everyone is practicing good social distancing. A fun fact is that an average horse is about 6 feet in length, so we are very well versed in what 6 feet looks like. There's signage around the property directing people to wash their hands upon arrival. We control the numbers of people coming into the Equestrian Center by limiting the number of riders in the arena at any given time, and everyone must have a reservation. Much like restaurants right now are only allowed reduced seating, and everyone must have a reservation. We're doing the same. And just like a restaurant, people will be encouraged to ride and go right now as there's other people that are going to be wanting to come in. And we want to be able to keep up with good social distancing. Riders will have their own helmets, boots, and equipment. And there's cleaning and sanitizing stations in every barn aisle for any shared supplies. Our bathrooms are cleaned regularly and supplies with soap, and again, extra signage with great reminders. All riders, instructors, and workers will sign a pledge that they promise to follow all the guidelines and to stay home if they feel sick in any way. But overall, we're excited to have the opportunity to submit our SAFE plan, have it reviewed by public health experts. And we know our lesson riders are eager to get back to riding and having some safe outdoor exercise that'll benefit both the body and the spirit during these challenging times. That's it.
Okay, thank you. And I believe Gibran's having a little bit of a hard time getting back on, so we will circle back unless Gibran, you're there.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, yes, thank you.
Oh, okay.
Okay, go right ahead.
Technology. No, I just wanted to reiterate a lot of the stuff Leanne said. I really, really want to thank staff. I know this has been a very hard time and everybody's been super crazy and we're all figuring out new ways of doing things. But staff has been fantastic. They've been very proactive and responsive in communication. Michelle and Terry and Jerry, especially, everybody's been great. So I just really want to say kudos to them, and I'm excited to keep this moving forward as we all figure out what our new normal is. And there are lots of different programs for lots of different kids that we're working on ways to have safe return to our new normal. Also, I would like to welcome the new board member. We're very excited to have a full board again and looking very much forward to working with everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Gibran. Janine Robbins, when you're ready, followed by Mike Robbins.
Good morning, board members. My name is Janine Robbins. Last year was the 40th anniversary of our business located at the Orange County Marketplace. As of today, swap meets have been cleared to reopen by the state. We are getting calls, emails, texts, as well as Facebook messages from customers every day now wanting to know when the marketplace will be reopening. It is urgent that you work on any contract renegotiation as soon as possible for the livelihoods of hundreds of vendors and thousands of employees. An early July opening should be on the agenda. I would hope to see it handled in a special meeting to allow vendors to restart their livelihood. The June meeting is too late. Many cities have already put a program in place for small businesses. Yesterday, the Orange County Board of Supervisors voted to give $75 million to cities to help struggling small businesses. The money will be split evenly among each of the 5 districts. They will each receive $15 million to be distributed to individual cities. Everyone is concerned about small businesses. The Kobe swap meet in San Diego is reopening tomorrow. Some Inland Empire swap meets are reopening this weekend. Other LA County-based swap meets will reopen in early and mid-June, and that means some marketplace vendors might go there and not return. Many patrons might go there and not return when they find the same vendors at Santa Fe Springs or Paramount swap meet. It is imperative that we reopen as soon as possible. Hundreds of small businesses and thousands of employees are counting on you. Please let us know if we can be of any assistance during this time of restructuring the contract with Spectra. The contract with Spectra will determine what they're able to offer vendors. So please handle this as quickly as possible. Thank you.
Michelle, this is Natalie. I just want to, I want to confirm we still have a valid contract with Spectra, which allows them to open up as soon as this weekend if they'd like, correct?
That's correct. So the state did clear the opening of shopping malls, shopping centers, and swap meets.
Perfect. So they have, if they have the ability to go ahead and start operations immediately if they choose to do so as the operator of the Orange County Marketplace.
Right, as long as they have all of those, state mandated safety protocols in place.
Perfect.
Yes.
Which is pretty simple. It's face masks.
Right. Social distancing.
And physical distancing. Okay.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Mike Robbins, when you're ready.
Hi, I'm Mike Robbins. We've been a vendor at the marketplace since 1979. Janine and I have been speaking at the Fair Board meetings for decades related to the vendors at the fair and at the marketplace. And we know this is a critical time I'm 65, so I'm not saying actually that we should open up tomorrow. Most of the swap meets are planning for mid-June or early July opening. But the vendors are in a tight position right now. Many of us are in debt to vendors and for other reasons, for money we might have borrowed to go out this period of time. And we're asking for support from the Fair Board and the Fairgrounds. We would like you to give Spectra in their contract 6 months free rent that can be passed on to the vendors. For instance, if I were to get 6 months free rent, it would pay for half of the money that I borrowed to help us get through this particular period. And some of the vendors at the marketplace, they purchased a lot of merchandise coming into spring, for instance, in clothing, for $50,000 or even $100,000 that they're on the line for, that they have in inventory now that owe money on. And they're really desperate to get back to work and also to pay off their debts. So we would hope that that the fairgrounds will help support us as counties and cities and the state and the federal government are doing for businesses all across the country. I really want to ask that we put that in there, that you work on that you put it on the agenda and get in there some sort of stimulus package for the marketplace that can go to the vendors and perhaps even go to the public, which, I mean, if they have free rent, they can have free admission. They can have free rent for the vendors, the permanent vendors. And perhaps we can start paying off our debts, and we can do it safely, I hope, in the right period of time. So thanks you guys for listening, and I hope we can work this out as soon as possible. And I hope that everybody stays safe and that we can open again safely. Thank you very much for listening, you guys. I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you, Mike. We have the next three speakers are Reggie Mundicus, Vincent Pohlmeyer, and Teresa Sears. Reggie, when you're ready.
Hi, I'm Reggie Mundicus. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, great. I'm Reggie Mundicus. I am one of the people who helped to stop the sale of the fairgrounds back under Governor Schwarzenegger and have been to nearly every Fair Board meeting since that time. I want to thank staff for all the work they're doing during this very interesting, changing time. Sometimes it seems that things change every day. And with that change comes a lot of new opportunities as we learn new ways to do things and look for new business models. And I hope that staff and the board embrace those changes and those new business models. I'd also like to thank Michelle for reaching out and working with the public and the different stakeholders at the fairgrounds. It's a very refreshing change. I'd like to thank Summer for her seemingly unending patience during these meetings, which can be challenging at times. Thanking Jason for the music during the breaks to keep us interested. And I'd like to congratulate Joan Hamill on her promotion to the Chief Business Development Officer. So thank you guys, and look forward to working with you as we move into the future.
Thank you, Reggie. Vincent, when you're ready.
Thank you, Summer. My name is Vincent Pohlmeyer, and for the benefit of Nick, who's new on the board, I'm a director of an organization called Friends and Neighbors of the Orange County Fairgrounds, and we're dedicated to making sure that the Orange County Fairgrounds remain responsive to the needs of the public and also community focused. I first off want to thank everybody at the fairgrounds, and especially Michelle, for all the work they've done, basically making sure that things remain safe and reasonably done. And I also want to thank her for keeping on top of this issue with respect to coordination with the OC Animal Care. And I appreciate getting the feedback very much. Also wanted to echo the prior comment and congratulate Joan on her new position. I've known Mike and Janine for a very long time, and I don't think that was anywhere near 3 minutes, but that's okay. I've known Mike and Janine for a very long time, and I don't want to, I hope I don't upset them. The Orange County Marketplace is a 50-plus-year-old business model that, as someone who's attended it on a fairly regular basis over the last few years, is dying. And I have the utmost sympathy for the people, for the vendors who are selling there. And I wish them great business. And I think we need to handle this smoothly. But the time may have come for a transition. I hope the Fair Board, I hope that the Fair Board will consider, really consider Spectra's point of view in this and wanting to get out of this contract. Spectra is not some small, naive company. They're a branch of Comcast. These are sophisticated people. They're recognizing that that business model is not working. I would like to encourage the Fair Board and encourage the 32nd DAA to consider actually what are, try to work out a transition, but consider what the long-term use of the marketplace is. The marketplace ties up a lot of very valuable parking lot space during every weekend, perhaps perhaps what we need to do is let Spectra out of this contract in return for turning over the properties that they have in the parking lot, those buildings, to control of the 32nd and ownership of the 32nd, and then maybe working with somebody like Tandem, who are experts in this field, to figure out what is the proper business model, the appropriate business model that's going to carry us forward into the future. Because the business model that's being used there is very much out of date, and it isn't working anymore. And I'm sorry for the vendors if that's true, but it's true. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Vincent. Teresa Sears, when you're ready. Teresa may not be on the line. She indicated she may or may not speak.
Summer, can you hear me now? I'm so sorry.
Yes, that's quite all right. Go right ahead when you're ready.
Forgot the star 6. Yes, can you hear me okay, Summer?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes. Okay, my name is Teresa Sears. I am a member, along with others, of the Orange County Fairgrounds Preservation Society. I, like Reggie and others, have been coming out to the fairgrounds, participating in the meetings for several decades now. I want to welcome Nick, our new board member. If it was a normal meeting, we would be welcoming you with open arms and wanting to know more about you, but we're very happy that you're willing to serve on this board. Like others, I thank Michelle, I congratulate Joan. Summer's doing a fabulous job, and we have a very good board. And I don't want to reiterate things that Reggie said. I do agree with many of the things that are getting said. One of the things I do want to say is I commend this board for having this meeting in the fashion that you're having it, because there are cities and agencies throughout Orange County that do not allow the public to participate. They don't make engagement easy, and this is very problematic as we press forward in these times. So I do want to commend you for that, and considering a night meeting. Those are very important. Secondarily, I'll just say I'm looking forward to visioning what our fairground may look like as we go forward, and the model that we've all wanted to make it the model for the state of the best. And we're anxious for that, and I will continue to work with the equestrians. I think they're doing a great job out there. I specifically want to thank Michelle for her engagement and being personally involved. So thank you, and hopefully we get to see each other soon. Appreciate the time.
Thank you, Teresa. Chair Cervantes, that's it for public comment.
Okay, thank you. Next, we are moving to matters of public comment. Public comment is allowed.
That was our public comment. Yeah, sorry, Chair
Yes.
Cervantes, that was our public comment. We're on the consent calendar.
Yes, that is correct. Consent calendar, all matters listed under consent calendar are operational matters about which the board has governing policies, implementation of which is delegated to this, delegation to the CEO. They will be enacted in one motion. There will be no discussion of these items prior to the time of the board of directors votes on the motion, unless members of the board, staff, or public request specific items to be discussed separately and or removed from this section. Any members of the public who wishes to discuss consent calendar items should notify the chair of the board at the time requested and be recognized by invitation of the chair to address the board. Do we have any additional public comment?
There's no public comment on this item.
Great, thank you. All right, now we're going to move to the governance process.
Oh, we could, excuse me, Chair Cervantes. We could entertain a motion to approve the consent calendar.
This is Director Aiken. I make a motion to approve the consent calendar.
Director Bonner, is a second? Director Bonner, is a second?
Okay, Summer, roll call, please.
Chair Cervantes?
Yes.
Vice Chair Rubalcava Garcia?
Yes.
Director Ruiz?
Yes.
Director Bonaris?
Yes.
Director Aiken?
Yes.
Director LaBelle?
Yes.
Director Pham?
Yes.
And Director Kovacevic?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Summer. Okay, to assure compliance with Bag Leaking Act, committee reports are only for the purpose of the committee chair, ad hoc committee members, or liaisons to provide a verbal update. Should the board want to discuss any committee work item not already on the agenda, those would need to be agendized for future board meetings. Let's move to Heroes Hall Veterans Foundation. Director LaBelle, do you have a report?
Yes, I do. Thank you, Chair Cervantes. The Heroes Hall Veterans Foundation met on May 14th at a regular meeting. And at that meeting, it was the action of the foundation to retain a consultant who has extensive experience in nonprofit fundraising. Her name is Sandy Stone. She's done quite a bit of work within Orange County, and the foundation approved moving forward with a proposal for phase one, which would develop a fund raising plan for the foundation. The cost of that is, relatively speaking, very nominal. It's $2,000, and that will be completed within 3 months. They also authorized phase two, which is to develop a grant program for the foundation, and that also will entail about 3 months of work. So looking about 6 months out, we'll see what those two efforts generate, and as a result, the foundation will then consider moving forward with other actions. Sandy prior to the COVID-19 issue, did meet with Michelle and myself and Nick Baradino and Carol at Heroes Hall. And she took a tour of that facility and has a very clear understanding of what the goals and objectives are in terms of the foundation and trying to raise funds for some of the ongoing programs that Heroes Hall maintains, the bus program being one of them. And that would conclude my comments on the foundation.
Thank you, Director LaBelle. Next is Financial Monitoring Committee, and that is Director Pham and Director LaBelle.
So us and staff reviewed the April financial statements, and we were briefed on revenue being unfavorable to budget by 1.8 million, as you saw earlier. However, that was offset by the expense reduction of $2 million, which is favorable due to cost control measures taken by staff and recommended by the state to initiate a hiring freeze, discontinue use of temporary staff, and to slow down the cash burn. You know, as a result, we, we're about 711,000 favorable to budget, but this is all pre-fair type stuff. And as you know, it's not going to be happening this year at least, or at least, during the summer. Staff also reviewed the best case scenario and worst case scenario with the information that we have today. And based on this information, we're expecting a net loss of anywhere between $15 to $18 million. Keep in mind that this does encompass, a $3 million non-cash expense. So the net cash impact should be around 12 to 15. That being said, I think staff is still exploring opportunities for ancillary revenue sources to mitigate the impact. I think people are eager to kind of start at least going out safely. A lot of restaurants and bars and such are starting to open up again with safety protocol. Went to Board and Brew this weekend and it was pretty busy. So I think I would expect once things start opening up and alleviating, things will improve if we find some additional revenue sources. And that's it.
All right, great. Thank you, Director Pham. Next, we have Legislative Monitoring Committee, and that is Director Aiken and Director Reese.
You know what? Currently, there's really nothing to report unless Director Aiken has anything to report. The legislature is currently back in session. However, like we reported last time, they're only focusing on all COVID-19 related bills at the time. We will continue to monitor if anything comes up that's going to Fair and Event Center. We will definitely keep you guys up to date as they come in. Director, Aiken, do you have anything else to add to that?
No, thank you, Director Ruiz.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Director Reese. Next, we have Facilities Committee, and that is Director Aiken and Director Pham.
Yes, thank you. I want to just direct not only the board's attention, but the public's attention to our Facilities Committee report that is on our website. It gives a bit more detail about what I'm going to be talking about. So we have been, as part of our committee work, going and working with staff on all the RFPs and IFBs that are going out. So as we've discussed previously, we have the RFP for the ground lighting, staging and trussing, hangar building sound equipment and heritage stage that are out. And we are currently going to be reviewing for the hangar and grounds video RFP that we've approved, and we're going to be hopefully getting that out and scoring the last week of this month. So one thing I do want to call the board's attention to is the progress being made on the oversight, on the infrastructure audit. As we have alluded, we've been going through this, doing it zone by zone. and they're all quite voluminous. So we as a committee have asked the staff and those that are drafting our infrastructure audit to also add summaries of all of the different zones and sections to make it a little easier for the board to digest the information. We're hoping by at least the beginning of May that we can get the reports out to the full board for review. And we want to then build this around doing it in a public session. So we as a board can meet and get a extensive, probably going to be a bit long, but overview of all the recommendations coming out of the infrastructure audit. So stay tuned for that. We have a lot of our capital projects that are moving forward. And we have, as we've talked about before, without having a lot of people on the property, we're able to finish some of the projects. That's our Plaza Pacifica, which is our artificial turf project. An update for our storm water management project. We did work with the Equestrian Center because they have one part of it as well as one on the west side, but working with the Equestrian Center, just letting them know that we were going to have people that were interested in potentially bidding on the project come out for a walk. And we did have a job walk carried out last Thursday with 2 people attending. We have extended that because we're hoping that if anyone else is interested in walking the project, that we can do another job walk the first week of June, but a date hasn't been determined yet. Just 2 new items that I want to update people on. We are entering the time for our annual CAL FIRE Authority inspection. That was carried out. We haven't gotten our final paperwork back, but we will update the board as soon as we hear back from CAL FIRE. Michelle did a great job of updating everything the facilities committee is doing and working with the reopening of the Equestrian Center. We have taken that on as part of our committee. You know, we were directed by CDFA in mid-March that they were not opening. I'd like to commend our CEO for repeatedly reaching out to see when we were going to be getting changes in direction and sending letters to them. We did find out last week that there's going to be, you know, new plans in place. And now our charge is to work with our local county to reopen that up. So thank you to Michelle for every week staying on top of that. I know the equestrian community really appreciates it. And then we now look forward to working with them to get our plan approved so that we can start having a more active equestrian center. So sorry, it's a little bit long, but that's our facilities committee report, unless Ken has anything or Newton has anything to add.
Okay, thank you, Director Aiken. Next is the Audit and Compliance Committee, and that is Vice Chair Rubalcaba Garcia and Director LaBelle.
Thank you, Chair Cervantes. So just to kind of refresh everybody's memory from the last meeting, we did receive word from the state that the state auditor has recommended that we go to an outside firm to conduct the 2019 audit. So we have worked with staff. Michelle and team did a great job putting together an RFQ, which is a request for quote. That RFQ was reviewed by the committee and it was released on May 20th. It has been sent to all CPA firms in Orange County with at least 40% of their practice dedicated to auditing. All of the bids will be due by June 12th and we will make a decision by June 17th. So that's all I have to report on this item for now. Doug, do you have anything to add?
No, I have nothing further, Natalie. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Director Rubalcaba Garcia and Director LaBelle. And we can go ahead and move to an action item, and this will be presented by Michelle, which is the presentation of the.
Chair Cervantes,
do we have
I'm
public
so sorry.
comment?
Yes, I'm so sorry to interrupt.
Okay,
we do have
let's
two
do that.
members.
Okay.
Reggie Mendicus,
Perfect. Take over, Summer.
Chair Cervantes, I'm sorry, before we go to public comment, can I just make a brief comment about the Community Engagement Committee, which is item I?
Absolutely, please.
So I just wanted to mention, you know, due to COVID-19, we had put an allocation of funds to, allocate towards community requests and kind requests that come through. So we have not, because of the uncertainty in revenue and the decline that we'll face not having a fair this year, we have not met as a committee to review any of the requests that have come through. And I don't think we have received any at this time, except for a couple of in-kind, which the committee will be scheduling a meeting with Michelle and the rest of that committee to review some of those requests that come through. But for now, I just wanted to highlight that we don't have anything to report due to the fact that that allocation of funds is uncertain at this time. Anything to add to that, Michelle?
Thank you, Director Rebecca Garcia. That is great information. Okay, Summer, can you please move forward with public comments?
Thank you. It'll be Reggie Mundicus followed by Vincent Pullmeyer. Reggie, when you're ready.
Hi, this is Reggie Mundicus. I'd like to make some comments regarding the Facilities Committee operation. While I appreciate the efforts of the Facilities Committee, the public's not getting what we need to feel comfortable what's being built and changed at the fairgrounds. For instance, it is way too difficult to get a set of drawings from staff. It's usually a very simple matter to get project drawings from a city engineer, but for some reason, it's very difficult, if not impossible, to get drawings from staff. An example of that is with the proposed gate signage project. We have found out that staff is moving ahead with that project and have completed the photometric study, which is the last part of the process. And they are moving ahead without making the changes requested by the city of Costa Mesa regarding safety issues along Arlington Drive. The staff have also not met with the Costa Mesa Bikeways and Walkability Committee regarding the signage project, and they were directed to do so by the Costa Mesa Planning Commission. Another example is the issues with the desilting basin. While we appreciate an email going out saying that there's going to be contractors walking around the equestrian center regarding the desilting basin construction, the plans were not shared with equestrians and members of the public. When you look at the plans, you find out that one of the round pens is going to be removed when a new basin is installed, and that construction of the base of the new facility back there for desilting and stormwater management requires erosion control structures that preclude use of 2 or more of the pens for a period of time. So this is all information that should have been shared up front with equestrians and the public so everybody knows what's going on so they can make the appropriate changes. And there, in the facilities report, I'll just read to you what it says. It says staff has done a review of the capital project / budget and has made recommendations to the committee on some projects to be deferred. What are those projects? What was chosen to be deferred? We need to know where our public money is being spent on public projects on public property. And we need to find ways of improving the management of capital projects on this property to allow the public to understand what is going on in a timely manner. Thank you.
Thank you, Reggie. Vincent Pullmeyer, when you're ready.
Thank you, Summer. I just want to say up front, I'm going to reserve my general comments about how the committee process is being used by this board, intentionally or unintentionally, to defer work to the committees, which happens out of sight of the public, to agenda item G. But what I do want to talk about is specifically respond to some of the committee reports. In this report on the Financial Monitoring Committee, Director Pham talked about the hope of being able to generate more revenue as things open up. I just want to say, safety and health have to be our ultimate rubric. That's the gold standard. Just because we can do something doesn't mean we should do something. And I think as we move forward, we have done a really good job, I think, over the past couple of months of making sure that health and safety was job one. And we just need to keep doing that and not be too concerned about the budget. We have a substantial, very substantial reserve due to the prudent management of this and past boards, and we shouldn't compromise safety. We do not want to become a super spreader site. Regarding the Audit and Compliance Committee, so an RFQ has gone out, bids are going to come back, and they're going to be selected all before the next board meeting, without any public involvement, any public oversight, any public visibility. That's not the way public agencies are supposed to operate. Sorry, that's just not. There should have been some involvement of the public involved in that. Finally, I have to just echo what Reg said about the Facilities Committee. We are now operating, we're now doing all the facilities and maintenance work behind the scenes, out of the sight of the public, under a blanket. I say to the committee, release those draft infrastructure, those draft facilities audit reports to the public now. Release them now. You've got drafts of dozens for various sectors. Release them so the public can see them. Get public input before you go to the board. Don't throw us a bone having a public meeting where we're allowed to talk about these, what you already said are voluminous reports, 3 minutes at a time. No, release them to the public. And the same goes with the capital projects and everything else. Don't hide things from the public. Okay, that's all my comment.
Thank you. Chair Cervantes, that's it for public comment on the committee reports.
Thank you. The next item is an action item, and it will be presented by Michelle. And this is a presentation of the 2020 virtual OC Fair activities and consideration of it, and vote on whether or not to approve related expenses. Michelle?
So we were all obviously understanding but saddened about the cancellation of the 2020 OC Fair. But thank you to Chair Cervantes and Vice Chair Rubalcava Garcia for taking the lead in recommending and helping develop the OC Fair virtual fair starting July 17th. This is going to be a fun way for our fans to engage with the OC Fair, even if they can't be here on site this year. We'll create slices of the OC Fair to share with folks at home. The virtual fair will live on our OC Fair social media channels, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and on our ocfair.com website. And we're cooking up all kinds of great things to keep our fans engaged, keep the community thinking about the OC Fair, and having some fair fun during the summer. So I'd like to now turn it over to Joan Hamill, our new Chief Business Development Officer, to walk through some of the things that are being planned. Joan?
Thank you. And thank you to everyone for your kind words and well wishes. I'm honored to be in this, serving the community and the organization in this capacity. So talking about the virtual OC Fair, very enthusiastic response to this idea, and staff, along with direction from the board, coming up with several ideas for consideration, and we're down the path of planning a few of these and seeing how we might be able to implement some other things. But to give you an overview of what we're looking at as an organization is like the OC Fair and our opening day. That is a lot of fanfare. We're looking to do some type of opening event on July 17th to launch this day and our 23-day run potentially. And looking for all the things that are included at our regular fair that the public has come to know and love and participate in. So those would be things like our competitive areas, to include culinary, garden and floral, photography, collections, woodworking, and table settings. Of course, we can't accept any of these things on site, so we're arranging a mechanism where people can enter their photos and have those up on display and also be judged as well. Also looking at doing contests for the entire family and engaging the entire family with social media photos and video contest. Also looking at possibly incorporating a fun run challenge. And we think this might be very doable in terms of the public documenting what they're doing and then posting it again on our website for some virtual fun. Slide. Looking at a couple of areas where we can have flashback events from the Action Sports Arena and the tribute band concerts. Of course, we're looking into licensing and what all of this entails. If we're going to be doing this, we want to make sure we're doing this the correct way and dotting all of our I's and crossing all of our T's. Featuring some of our wonderful grounds entertainer videos and engaging all of our partners if we can. Like to do some online demonstrations to really get the public involved in interacting with the virtual fair that they can do at home. So ideas like doing clown makeup demos and cooking demonstrations with some of our wonderful partners. Frank Thurston, who is a mainstay in the Explorium at the fair. Hopefully we can engage him to participate with us and do some online magic. The foodies, those are our costume characters. Maybe every day we do a dance party with the foodies. A lot of these things that we are presenting can be run throughout the 23 days. So, but we want to have new content throughout the run of the virtual fair. Craft beer tasting, of course, we can't do that online, but we can work with our enthusiasts and our partners to talk about how to do a craft beer tasting, and also possibly engage the Orange County Wine Society to do some demos and to give the public some tips. Also photography tips, craft demos. Of course, we have things that are going on site, like our milking, because the farm is being maintained, and so we could have the milking demonstrations from Centennial Farm, as well as gardening tips from Centennial Farm. And then lastly, this isn't it, but some other ideas that we're looking to put forth is a market livestock program where students that have animals, for those who still have animals, that they can post their pictures of their animals. We have software that we can adapt. So the pictures can be downloaded, all pertinent information, and we can do an online judging. It doesn't replace the in-person judging, but we're looking to do this livestock program. We also want to put together students and potential buyers. So the kids who have lovingly raised their animals will not be out the money and the funds that they have put into participating with in raising an animal. Also looking to do some activities at the farm that we can film in a safe manner and put on the website. Of course, Heroes Hall, we can actively engage by having online lessons and vet talks, maybe in a Zoom format. Or just they can be taped and loaded. So also downloadable games and activities, things like coloring books, or coloring pages, I should say, and activities that for those fair patrons at home can download and participate. Also seeing how we can engage our wonderful fair merchants who are not able to have an on-site presence by doing something online. So if you're looking for that item that you were wanting to purchase in 2020, you can do so online. So we're exploring that avenue as well. And then the last couple of items, obviously these are not virtual, but these will be determined on whether or not we can have vehicles come on grounds and how we could set this up. But some type of fair food on-site purchasing, or and also looking to We Care Wednesday donation drives. Of course, both of these we might be able to do in a virtual manner. So we're looking at exploring all options as we do this brand new thing that we're going to be presenting the public who is longing for the OC Fair, as are we.
Thank you, Joan. So you might be asking, how do we plan to promote the virtual fair? Well, we're going to post on our website each day a daily lineup so that our guests will know what's available to them in terms of either a live streamed event or maybe a flashback concert or live demonstrations, videotape demonstrations, resources, etc. So we'll do a lot of promotion on ocfair.com. Our typical total page views is between 200 and 350,000. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, we're going to be doing a lot on social media to keep the fair alive. We have 157,000 followers on Facebook, over 49,000 on Instagram, and over 35,000 on Twitter. So a great audience as well. We have a lot of fair fans amongst the media and broadcasters in particular. And some of the radio DJs are huge fans of the OC Fair and have asked us to loop them in on our plans so they can help promote the virtual fair. We'll go out to all of the cities in Orange County. We have a great partnership with all of the cities who on an annual basis do a lot to help promote the OC Fair. And so we'll be involving local elected officials and community leaders to help promote the virtual fair. We've got the OC Fair billboard here on site and our electronic marquees, so we'll start getting the word out, as well as using our very robust database through periodic e-blasts to our customers. There are business organizations and travel and tourism organizations that we work very closely with that will help promote, as well as our local media partners. So lots of opportunities to get the word out about the virtual fair. There may be some small costs involved, and we're bringing this to the board for consideration. When we change out the billboard that is alongside the 55 Freeway Newport Boulevard access, it costs us $1,500 each time. Not a big cost at all, and certainly it would go a long way to help promote the virtual fair. Our website is very robust, but there may be some web development, some additional plugins that we may need to do to host some of the activities we're planning. We're estimating about $2,500 for that. And then we have a lot of content already, but we may need some additional help from an outside video contractor to help put some of the highlight reels together. We plan to award special virtual fair ribbons and awards in the different competition and contest categories. And then as well to hire livestock judges that will make that program complete for the kids that have entered animals into the junior livestock auction. And then there will be an opportunity for us to do some paid social media posts as well to boost the promotion of the virtual fair. So very quickly, our next steps, the teaser campaign launches on social media, our website, and our reader boards this week. Next week, if approved, we'll move to change out the billboard to start promoting that and get our e-blast out to all of our fair fans. And then on an ongoing basis, the campaign will continue on social media and the website. We'll need to do the build out of the website so that all of the content you know, can be listed there. We're going to be developing new content and sprucing up old content to include as part of the virtual fair. As I mentioned earlier, we'll be developing the daily schedule of activities. Our Fair Food Extravaganza, the Fair Food Festival, of course, we will have to coordinate through OC Healthcare Agency, and I think a member of the public talked about that, and also in regard to our events. So nothing will happen here without approval from the Orange County Healthcare Agency. We'll line up contest judges from the community and hoping that board members will also help serve as judges. We'll execute the market livestock program. And then, of course, our sales team is busy already seeking cash and trade sponsors so that we can offset any additional costs related to the virtual fair. So there you have it. And we're happy to take any questions that you might have about this great opportunity.
Michelle,
Okay.
hi, it's Director Aiken.
Hi.
Have we had any outreach with any of our sponsors to see if there's a way to kind of include them in this or help us defray some of the costs? And then my second question, especially when it comes to social media, can we discuss maybe with some of our DJ partners or radio partners, whether they would be willing to share our content on their social media, and any outreach maybe to our Super Pass holders, because paid content is great, but the more we can actually have it be native and supporter driven, I think we'll go a lot farther in getting the information out there before we start.
The answers are yes, yes, and yes. So our sales team has already begun that outreach to our sponsors, and there are sponsors that are fair sponsors that are interested in participating. So absolutely yes. Working with media partners to push it out on their social media, absolutely we'll explore that. And then I love your idea about using Super Pass holders to engage with too. So yes, yes, and yes. Any other?
Michelle, this is Director LaBelle. And to follow up on Ashley's comment in terms of sponsorships, when the fair was canceled, not only did we impact those concessionaires and operators on the fairgrounds, but we impacted a significant number of businesses in the surrounding area that obviously received considerable benefit from having a fair there in terms of customers, whether it's a bank or a restaurant or whatever. I think we should make sure that we expand our sponsorship efforts to contact a number of local businesses in the area, restaurants particularly, but banks and other businesses and whatever sponsorships we can get to help offset our costs. I think we ought to have that as one of our top priorities in terms of our marketing efforts.
Yes, you bet, Doug.
Michelle, this is Natalie. Are we working with the agency that normally helps with the sponsorship and business development for the live fair?
We are. So Tandem is handling all of those outreach. And to Doug's point too, regarding local businesses, there are a lot of platinum partners that exhibit during the fair. Those are the merchants that want to, a little better location, more promotion by the fair. We think they're a great source of potential sponsors for the virtual fair too. So the team is working on that as we speak.
Perfect. Is it possible for the June meeting to get some financials on what the sponsorship revenue was for 2019 and what we anticipate it could potentially be for 2020?
Yes, absolutely. In fact, during the June meeting, we'll do a more detailed presentation as we're rolling out content. So we can give a more detailed presentation about what will be included with the virtual fair and then the sponsors that will be supporting it as well.
Perfect. And can you expand a little bit on the restaurant, the concessionaires, the fair food opportunities that'll be on site for pickup?
Yes, so there are many concessionaires. As you know, the cancellation of the OC Fair, not just the OC Fair, but fairs throughout California, has really had a devastating effect on those concessionaires not being able to get in front of fair audiences. And so we're going to sort of borrow an idea that a lot of other fairs are already doing, inviting fair concessionaires to be on site here to do takeout and pick up, obviously in a safe way. making sure that all the protocols are followed. But it'll be an opportunity for customers to call ahead, place their orders with their favorite fair concessionaire, and then pick up their order and enjoy it at home.
That alone will be a good marketing aspect.
Oh, yes.
For the competitions, so I know in the past we've hired judges to do a proper judging of the things that people enter. How will that work this year?
Right. So many of the judges won't participate, and actually we won't be able to follow state rules because we won't have the items in hand. But we think there's great value in people still entering the contest and having their item judged by a photograph and winning a commemorative ribbon or a prize for the virtual fair. And so we plan to use judges that would be made up of board members, community leaders, maybe media individuals, so that people still get recognized for all the hard work that they did in preparing for the on-site OC Fair, which can't take place this year.
Perfect. And is just out of curiosity, how come we couldn't have the items be dropped off and judged here? I mean, we could probably do it with adequate physical distancing and have the judges come at different times. Is there a reason why we wouldn't be able to execute that from an operational standpoint?
Yeah, Joan may be able to add more, because I know that's an area that her group works really closely with, but a lot of the judges are not open to doing that because of the concern about taking items that have been in someone else's hands or in their home and bringing them on site here. We would have concerns for staff that would be involved with that as well. But being able to judge those items by photograph, we still want to give recognition to the members of the public that have worked so hard on those items.
Yeah, and I would just want to, this is Joan speaking. I would just want to add that with the market show, we would definitely want to, that's where we would need to engage actual livestock judges for that. Even though they are judging by a picture, we still need to have their expertise that would be involved in that. So, but Michelle touched on the point of looking at, this was back before things had closed down. We were getting we were getting a lot of feedback from judges that were very concerned about being in a space and trying to judge adequately and getting close to exhibits and with each other. Oftentimes it's a kind of a two-person approach in some instances. Some instances it's more of a panel. So to be able to pull that off in a safe manner, we're very concerned about that.
Thank you. I think the work that you guys have done is great. The creative looks, it's very cute and timely. I think it'll capture the period of this COVID-19 moment that we're all in. So thank you for all of the work that everybody has put into it.
Yes, Michelle, this is Doug again. A couple of additional thoughts. With us moving into the phase where the site can be opened up, in addition to the virtual aspects of the fair, there may be some activities that we can safely, and again, I emphasize safely, have on the site during the July-August timeframe, whether it's a bicycle route through the fair, whatever. Obviously, we've got to make sure that we're safe there. And in addition to our concessionaires, again, I would emphasize that there are many restaurants in the Costa Mesa area that are going to be equally impacted by revenue that they might have had generated. I think we should open up the opportunities to maybe allow some of them to be on the site. Raising Cane's, they've been a sponsor over the years. In-N-Out Burger, et cetera, et cetera. So I think we should not limit our efforts to fair concessionaires, but we ought to look at other opportunities that would help the local businesses. And just as an example for everybody, the Newport Rib Company this past weekend gave a 10% discount on any orders purchased, and that 10% discount went to the Heroes Hall Veterans Foundation for the bus program, all of which benefits Heroes Hall and the operations of that. So those are just some things I think we ought to put on the plate to kind of take a close look at as we move forward with this.
Very good. Okay, if there are no other questions or comments, I think we could move to the vote.
Michelle?
Can we go into public comment? Summer,
yes.
I believe that we have two people.
We have two people for public comment. Reggie Mundicus, followed by Vincent Pullmeyer. Reggie, when you're ready.
Hi, this is Reggie, and I support this item. I think this is a great idea, moving the fair online and finding ways to do things virtually. And I see this as actually an entry into a new market long term. For instance, you could reach out to our military and service members, both in the United States and overseas, to get them to participate in the different activities, because many times when you're on a military base overseas, you don't have a lot of options for family entertainment. And this is something that's low cost or free that could be a welcome taste to home for them. Same thing with veterans, some of who may be in VA hospitals or other care facilities. So I'm thinking long-term on this, where this could become a regular part of the annual fair when we go back to having a physical in-person fair. So this is part of the changes that we're going through as a society as a result of COVID-19. And I just like to thank staff for their work on this. I think they're doing a great job. Thank you.
Thank you, Reggie. Vincent Pullmeyer, Vincent Pullmeyer, when you're ready.
Thank you, Summer. I'm actually going to make two comments. One in my role from Friends and Neighbors of the Orange County Fairgrounds, and that's going to be to echo what Reggie just said. But I'm really, really pleased to see the sort of out-of-the-box thinking that we've got going on here, and an attempt to keep the spirit of the fair alive, and all the hard work that has been done here. This is a great idea. I hope it's something that does get incorporated into sort of the fair DNA, and as we move forward, and if it's the first sort of idea, the first sort of initiative coming from our new director of business development, then that's a really good sign. Now, my second comment is going to be as someone who spent the last 20 years working as an intellectual property attorney, primarily in the area of litigation. Anytime you take things like this on the online and you're broadcasting music, anything that can be covered by copyright or other intellectual property, you're wandering into a minefield that has to be walked through very, very carefully. And I was very pleased to hear you say that you're working with your licensing, but that may not be enough. Like I said, be very careful, because there are trolls out there who basically are looking for people doing things online where they can come in and try to get statutory copyright damages and other things. And a lot of them own copyrights to old music, 50s and 60s. They bought up the copyrights to 50s and 60s music, and they're just waiting for somebody to use it without having dotted every I and crossed every T. So to that end, what I'd like to ask the board to do is to make sure that as we go forward, that there's an approval for to get the appropriate copyright counsel, whoever that may be. If it's somebody if the Attorney General's office has somebody, great. If not, get permission to go outside. But like I said, make sure your I's are crossed, your T's are dotted, and I'd like to see the board make sure that staff has enough funding to go get that legal support to prevent any problem from occurring before it occurs. Thank you.
Okay, thank
Chair
you,
Cervantes,
Vincent.
this is Doug again. I agree completely with Mr. Pallmeyer's comments, and that's obviously an area that I think we need to look and move very, very carefully in. And to the extent the Attorney General's office, I don't know if Josh wants to speak to this, but if that expertise doesn't exist within their operation, I think it's very, very important that we get some outside counsel to make sure that we are doing it right. It's easier to ask the question rather than to try to solve the problem after it occurs. With that, I would move forward with approving proceeding ahead with the virtual fair as outlined by staff and with the comments that were provided by members of the board, and with the added provision that we do whatever we need to do to get necessary legal counsel to address any questions that may occur relative to the types of activities that we're going to be doing. That would be my motion.
Second by Director Ruiz.
Okay, Summer, can you please call for a vote?
Chair Cervantes,
Yes.
Vice Chair Rubalcaba Garcia,
Yes.
Director Ruiz,
Yes.
Director Bonaris,
Yes.
Director Aiken,
Yes.
Director LaBelle,
Yes.
Director Pham,
Yes.
and Director Kovacevic.
Yes.
All
Okay,
right,
thank
thank
you.
you.
The next item is an information item, and Michelle will present this item. It's presentation of 2020 budget reforecast.
Thank you so much. So upon the news of the 2020 OC Fair being canceled, our staff went to work developing a reforecast of the budget to be able to present to the board a clearer picture of where we're at with regard to our financials. We included actually a best case and a worst case scenario. So in both cases, we've included 4 months of actual revenue and expenses from January through April. We have all of those actuals, and those were built into the model. Also built into the models were the elimination of all seasonal and temporary labor, with the exception of our essential security staff. As you know, we are a 24/7 security staff here. So version 1, we would call that our best case scenario. So that includes the loss of fair revenue. It includes a loss of any spring events, but it does include a full roster of post-fair events in the fall. And that best case scenario takes us to a year-end net deficit of $15,082,806. Now, if we look at the worst case scenario, that also includes 4 months of actuals, January through April. It also includes the elimination of seasonal and temporary labor, with the exception of security. But it also eliminates any revenue that was associated with any post-fair events through the end of the year. So we're labeling that our worst case scenario. And that brings us at a net deficit of $18,473,921. So obviously from previous discussions during this meeting, the board should know that the staff will continue to look for meaningful expense cuts, look for opportunities to generate revenue, including with the virtual fair and some of the other vehicle-based type or non-spectator type events that are being explored. and we'll try to close that gap as much as possible. But I think it's important for all to understand what the likely outcome might be at the end of the year, depending on whether we're able to host any events in the fall. So this is an information item only. We're happy to take any questions, but I would request that staff can continue to work very closely with our Financial Monitoring Committee. Directors LaBelle and Pham have done a great job of helping, and I think it's going to become even more critical as we begin to feel the full effects of the lack of revenue from the fair, that we stay on top of this and you know, consider action that might put us in the best financial light.
Okay, if there are no comments or questions, we can.
Chair Cervantes, this is.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
This is Doug. Back when the budget was approved in December, it was always intended that we would come back in June and kind of revisit where we were at and where we were going. So I think that's still the intent that staff has, that at the June meeting, this would be on there as an action item. And as an action item, then the board would have the opportunity to weigh in on various policy considerations. My perception, and it's probably as good as anybody's or as bad as anybody's, is that that probably the bottom line is going to be somewhere in between the best case and worst case scenario. I find it hard to envision that in October that we're going to be able to have the OC Marathon with all of the activity occurring there. Hopefully I'm wrong, but and then obviously anything very active in the hangar in terms of the Fight Club and that. Maybe there's something that would be without an audience sort of thing. But what I would like to ask staff to do, based on the earlier comments of Mr. Pallmeyer, I'd like to see that when we have a review of the budget in June, that we look at the where we're at exactly in terms of our capital projects and have some idea of what we're moving forward with and what we've got on hold. I clearly agree that health and safety has got to be our #1 priority, and we've got to get that done, and that has been the board's policy for some time. So that would be my thoughts. That and for the other board members to weigh in and provide any specific comments or direction to assist staff in preparing for the action item at the June board meeting.
Okay, if we do not have any, do we have any other comments? Okay, we have no public comments on this item, so we will move to action item, which is San Diego County Fair team presenting this item, and this is consideration of and vote on whether or not to approve line of credit agreement with the 22nd District Agricultural Association, San Diego County Fairgrounds. And Michelle, maybe you can assist with this.
Yes, I believe Tim Fennell, the CEO of the 22nd District Ag Association, will kick off the presentation. So Tim, do we have you and your team?
Yes, you do. Can you hear us?
We can, yes.
Well, good morning, everyone. Good morning, Chairwoman Cervantes, Board of Directors of the 32nd DAA, and CEO Richards. Thank you for this opportunity. I trust everyone had a pleasant Memorial Day weekend and everyone is staying healthy and safe. I, for one, had a very good weekend. I got a haircut up in San Clemente over the weekend, which was nice. I was starting to look a little like Willie Nelson. And I got to enjoy a restaurant in San Clemente as well. Again, thank you for this opportunity and this opportunity to present to you today. I would like to introduce our presenters today. We have the chairman of our board of directors, a member of our finance committee, Mr. Richard Valdez. And Richard is a partner in a very prominent San Diego law firm and an adjunct professor at the University of San Diego School of Law. And he was first appointed to our board back in 2014. We also have Director Pierre Slayman, who has been on our board since 2015. And he is chairman of our finance committee. And Pierre is one of my heroes as he is an entrepreneur. And he founded and is the CEO of Go Green Agriculture back in 2009. And he is also vice chair of the San Diego County Farm Bureau. Also today with us, we have Colleen Moore. Colleen is the newest member of our senior management team. She's been with us about 1.5 years. She's our deputy general manager. And prior to coming here, she was the CEO of the Calistoga Fair for about 6 years. And Colleen was instrumental in preparing this presentation. I want to give her credit and thank her. And finally, my name is Timothy Fennell, and I've had the pleasure and honor of being the CEO of the Del Mar Fairgrounds for a little over 27 years. And again, I want to thank you for this opportunity. We are certainly in unprecedented times. And any business that has not been negatively impacted, there's far and few. Our business model, if you like to turn to our first slide, our business model, similar to yours, and our operating budget is predicated on mass gathering events. 95% of our revenue is predicated on mass gathering events. And we started canceling or postponing events in March, and then in April and May, and then, of course, our June fair, similar to you. And that's a loss for us of about $54 million in lost operating revenue. And our monthly operating expenses, before we started doing some tightening and cuts and those kind of things, is about $3.2 million. And if you look at the slide on the right-hand side, you'll see that in the last 20 years, we have more than doubled our revenue. And in fact, if you went back to the early 90s, we have quadrupled our revenue over the years. We have a very strong track record. We have a very strong group of people here on our team. And we've had strong leadership on our board, and we continue to have strong leadership on our board. And I would ask you to turn to the next slide, where we reinvested many of our revenues over the years. Over $280 million has been reinvested into our property. And it started back in the early 90s. About $45 million in revenue was put into or helped the down payment of our $80 million grandstand. Since that time, we have done a number of other things. We have built a satellite wagering facility, 3 new exhibit halls. We put a roof over our arena. We reinvested millions of dollars in our racing surfaces and in our horse racing structures. We purchased an equestrian facility, a 63-acre equestrian facility. We improved our golf driving range and our miniature golf. We converted a parking lot into a $5 million restoration project. Currently, we have a water quality improvement project. We're about 1.5 years into it, have another about 1 year to go, and we're spending about $13 million on that project. And we're in the process of reinventing, renovating our outdated satellite wagering facility into a new entertainment, concert, and esports center. So we're doing a lot of things. We're reinvesting back into our property. We look at our facility, as I'm sure you do as well. It's a jewel. We need to polish it, make it better, and meet the needs of our San Diego patrons, the folks that come to our fairgrounds on a year-round basis, create jobs and opportunities. And as an evacuation site, we need to be here for the people of San Diego. So I think you've heard a little bit enough from me, and I'd like to turn over the presentation to our board chairman, Mr. Richard Valdez.
Good morning, everybody. and thank you very much for your consideration today. We are very happy to come before you, and thank you very much. As you well know, because I think you've lived this story as we have, it all started in March when the governor had limited gatherings to 50 folks. And that immediately had a direct effect on the ability to hold any events at our fairgrounds, and all March and April events were postponed. We were holding on as long as we possibly could have to make a decision regarding our June 5th to July 5th fair, and I'm sure you were doing the same. And it wasn't perfectly clear until April 14th, when the governor had a press conference and stated that mass gatherings throughout the entire summer were not in the cards. And it was at that point in time that we as a board, and with the recommendation of our staff, postponed our 2020 fair. We immediately started looking at the effects that COVID was going to have on our organization starting in March. And when we postponed the fair, obviously that put us into a pretty catastrophic financial situation. We were facing $54 million in revenue losses as a result. Our fair generates on average $12 million of profit each year. A lot of what Michelle had stated during her report and Directors LaBelle and Pham about your 2020 budget reforecast, that sounded very familiar to me and to the senior staff and to the Finance Committee, because that is exactly what we did. We immediately, as a board and a senior staff, came together to determine what really were going to be the effects of this on us. And we came to a conclusion when looking through basically our next fair, 2021, that we were having a $20 million gap. And what were we going to do about that? We immediately started speaking to folks in Sacramento about our story. We had conversations with everybody that would listen, CDFA, Director of the Department of Finance, the Governor's Office, our elected officials, and we did a reach to the Governor's Office and to the Governor for $20 million assistance. And we immediately started pursuing and looking for other ways to close the gap. Next. So we were very methodical about our approach, as you all have been. And the first thing we did was we looked to reduce all expenses immediately and defer as much as we possibly could into the future. And that was effective and helped us with our timeline, pushing our safety net as far into the future as we possibly could. I've already stated that we looked to the Governor's Office and hoped that there would be additional funds for the network of fairs in the May revised budget. We were pleased to see that the governor had allocated $40.3 million to the network of fairs. We are actively looking to what our share will be of that. So that was what we did as well. We looked for other funding and did everything we could to pursue any opportunity we had with other funding. And the fourth prong of our stool is our presentation to you here today for financial assistance. Next. With any plan, I think it's important to understand really how do we get from here to there. And from here is March 4th, 2020, when this all started, and there is beyond the COVID effects and be able to thrive going into the future. So our first stage was how do we get from the March 4th timeframe to now? And many of the efforts that I said before is what we looked at in that time frame. We need to be able to survive through our fair of next year, when we'll be able to meaningfully generate more revenues. In the meantime, we will look at every opportunity to have events. And just as Michelle stated, we've looked at the same sort of prognosis. What is it going to look like if we can have events at our fairgrounds? We have a summer meet of horse racing. We have other opportunities. What can we do? What if we don't? What if we can't have the mass gatherings? How do we get to our next fair and going forward? So that's the secure time frame. And then after our next fair in July 20 to 21 until the next year to stabilize, and then in July of 2022 and beyond, having this behind us and being able to thrive. I think we're going to have Director Slayman talk about some of the specifics here.
Thank you, and to the board, thank you so much just for listening to us and considering our request. I'd like to walk you through in a little bit more detail the actions that we've taken to date and the plan that we have moving forward in how we plan to get out of the situation and survive and thrive at the end. So as President Valdez mentioned at the very beginning of the issues that occurred, we immediately took action to mitigate as much of our exposure as possible. So that's what's happened to date. On this slide, you can see some of the obvious things that we attacked that I'm sure as you guys did as well, from reducing the seasonal workforce, generally every aspect that we could quickly take action on to reduce and mitigate our burn rate and reduce the overhead is what we did. We had an original monthly burn rate of about $3.2 million per month. And with the quick action that we took, we were able to reduce it almost immediately by close to $1 million. That was with the low-hanging fruit that we were able to go after. Now, with what we are doing moving forward, we are taking more serious looks, well, it's always been serious, but more close look at what other areas can we continue to reduce cost on, and how can we mitigate the burn rate and the exposure, while at the same time putting together an action plan to bridge the gap that we have. As President Valdez mentioned, we've quantified to be approximately $20 million, while also, of course, maximizing whatever other revenues that we can generate and get us to the next place. So up until this point, we have taken pretty strong action in reducing and mitigating our overhead exposure. And now the next steps are looking at how we can do that in an even more deep way, and how we can bridge that gap and get us to the next step with revenues. So if we can move to the next slide, please. We have a four-pronged approach to bridge the gap, and that's what I'm going to review. So it's the four steps that we have are what's listed here. First is a $5 million, so in total it's $20 million. By coincidence, it's about equal portions of $5 million each to put to bridge this gap. First, it's a $5 million additional reduction and deferral in expenses. Second, it's a $5 million secured that we have received from outside funding sources. Third is CDFA support, as I'm sure you are also well aware of. And the final gap, this gets us to $15 million. The final gap that we have to bridge is the final $5 million, which is where we're coming to you for support. Now, altogether, this would bridge the gap that we need to get us to a safe and ongoing place. I want to take a little step back and just mention a more human aspect to this. And I know for all of us, we are all in a very difficult situation. And this ask that we are making of you to your board does not come without a tremendous amount of thought and consideration and understanding that we're all in the same situation, that you are also struggling to survive and looking for ways that how you can secure your future and ensure that you don't put yourself in a situation that is compromising. And I really want to over-express that we are in no way wanting you to put yourself in a situation that would compromise your well-being. we hope that what we can put together here is something that could be a win-win for both parties. We're not asking of anything, and would hope that if it's not a win-win, this is not something that we should do. I hope that we can structure something that could accomplish that. So I'm going to walk you through the structure that we've put together, and I hope that we can show that we have come up with a plan that is robust, that considers a lot of the concerns that we all have in a conservative approach to what will probably happen and what will not happen. We are not being overly optimistic. We understand that this will probably take years to get back to normal. And that is specifically what we have factored into our model to get back to norm. So next slide, please. So the next step is to stabilize. So at first we mitigated, then the next step is to secure, as I mentioned in the previous slide, the $20 million in funding. And then the next steps are now to start to regenerate revenue to get us to the next phase. The request that we have for $5 million is not just the $5 million that's important. It's also how we pay it back. So knowing that the ask is not just the $5 million, but the debt service repayment at the cost of potentially making it something that's more difficult to swallow, what I want to express is that in order to secure both of the security of that money, the $5 million, and also for us to be able to have a recovery that is actually something that will work for us, it requires us to not only borrow that money, but also to have a debt service structure that allows us to do it in a healthy way. And that's what we're proposing here. The first phase would be a deferred payment, where for a period of time, we will accrue interest and it'll get recapitalized into the principal balance, so that we understand you need to have a return on your money. We expect that to be fair. But we also need, during this short period of time, to be able to stabilize. And that's what we're looking to do. So during this stabilization period, we're going to be, of course, reintroducing events under new social distancing norms. We're going to be having to adapt to those things, where we look to have 2 fairs between now and the time that we would enter the next phase, where we would then start repayment on the loan. We have 2 big things happening for us. We have the Breeders' Cup, which is an enormous event for us. We expect about $1.4 million in gross revenue just over a 2-day period for that one event. We also have what we call the center, which is an almost $20 million investment that we've made in an event space, which is an alternative and additional revenue source that we have never had before. And this is something that, again, under new social distancing guidelines, we will soon have as an additional source that we've never had in the past. As Tim had mentioned, we have constantly been very business-minded in how we reinvest our revenues. We put it in so that we can diversify our revenue streams. We understand that we have historically had profit centers that may or may not be sustainable in the future. And since some time ago, we had started investing in diversification. So we are in a very strong position right now to start to capture that and take advantage of it. Unfortunately, of course, COVID hit in this time frame, but we have a very strong diverse revenue stream that we can start to tap into once things start to get back to normal. Next slide, please. Then finally is the recovery phase. And this is when we start to have cash flows that are safe for us, we believe, well into past the danger zone of this time frame, where we would make debt service repayments. What we're proposing is for the $5 million, the structured debt service in total would be a 5-year period, including the deferred payment timeline. So the repayment would be over a 3-year period, where we go into now principal and interest payments. So during this recovery phase, we'll commence the debt service payments, principal and interest. We, during this time, are rebuilding into and have been a dynamic and flexible organization. We have completely been, as I mentioned, investing into multiple revenue streams that allow us to have this ability to adapt to these different situations. Next slide, please. So, and actually, one more slide. This is, I'm going to summarize the request here. So basically, we're looking at what we are requesting is $5 million loan with a structured debt service payment, where for a period of time from now through July of 2021, we would have no payments, where we would accrue interest. And I would like to also say, we are not looking to propose what interest rate we think is fair. We would like to leave that up to you to choose what you think is a fair rate that captures and recognizes the risk for both parties, but hopefully is also something that could be fair. During this period, it would be accrued and capitalized. Then the next phase would be an interest-only period where we would pay the interest portion of the loan through June of 2022. And then after that, we would move into the principal and interest payments, which over a 3-year period, we would pay down the entire debt that we have. Again, I want to just go back and say that we completely understand how difficult the situation is for all parties. And this did not come easy for us to even come up with a concept that we would come and make this request of you, because we know that you are also in this situation. But we also know that the industry is an ecosystem. And if one pillar falls, it affects everybody tremendously. We really hope that we can find a way that we could structure this in such a way that it is something that is palatable for your organization and does not put you in a compromising position, while also helping us to get to the place that we need to be so that we can also be strong and keep the network strong altogether. This is a lot to consider, and we are not expecting a vote right now to take this in. What we are asking for is permission to move forward with a more specific back and forth where we can detail out some of the details that go into this. And of course, I imagine there's some diligence that you would want to do on your side. And for that reason, we hope that in a short time, by next meeting, hopefully, it could be an agenda item that with all the details having fledged out, it would be something that you may take action on. So with that, I'm going to turn it back to President Valdez to give his final thoughts.
Thank you. Next slide. I think Pierre hit upon all of the major issues here. You know, the network affairs of which we are both members is exactly that, a network. The network is at its very best when each of the fairs, each of the fairgrounds are thriving. But truthfully, the network affairs can truly only thrive and only be ultimately successful when its leaders are thriving and are successful. We are both leaders of the network of fairgrounds. And there is a logical connectivity between our fairgrounds and yours, and not just geographically, but there is a connection between the two of us that I think is very important. We share many of the same vendors and game operators and carnival ride entertainers. They rely upon the network as a whole, but they really do rely upon our connectivity based upon when our fair is versus when your fair is, and of course, geographically. We both have strong fibers in our communities, and we have huge presence in our communities. And we are at our best when we both are that presence for our respective communities. We are emergency response networks. And importantly, we are two of the biggest contributors to the $2.4 billion in sales tax revenues to the general fund. So we come to you today with this request because I do believe that it is in the best interests of the network. It certainly would be very, very helpful to us. And we want it to be a structured loan that would be beneficial to you as well. So I want to thank you for your consideration, and we are here to answer any questions that you might have.
Well, first, thank you, President Richard Valdez and the entire San Diego team for your presentation. And now we'll open up to the board directors.
Hi, this is Nick.
Cheers.
Oh. You want to go ahead, Doug?
No, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask Josh, actually. Sorry for the late notice, but I found out this morning that the 22nd DAA is a bank customer. Does that prohibit me from commenting on this at all, or?
Newton, this is Josh. Can you hear me?
Yep.
That's an excellent question. I actually think, in an abundance of caution, I would recommend, at least for the purposes of the meeting today, that you recuse yourself from the discussion, and then that would give me an opportunity to look into it a bit further and for us to talk offline to confirm whether there's any actual conflict of interest in the event decisions are made down the road. But again, for purposes of today, I'd recommend that you abstain from participating in the conversation.
Okay, thank you.
Chair Cervantes, this is Doug. I have a series of questions that I'd like to ask, but I'm wondering if we could get public comments beforehand. That may add to my comment list. I don't know if we have any speakers, and again, it's your prerogative as to whether you want to take them now or not, but that might be helpful.
Yes, thank you, Director LaBelle. We do. We do have 4 speakers for public comment. Summer, can you please call the names for public comment?
Yes, we do have 4 speakers. Janine Robbins, followed by Mike Robbins, followed by Reggie Mundakis, and Vincent Pohlmeyer. Janine, when you're ready.
Okay, board members, let me say that I was very surprised to see this item on the agenda. In the middle of last year, the marketplace, represented by Spectra, came before the board asking for a $500,000 loan to restructure the marketplace. The board seemed to react with dismay. I was present at that meeting. This reaction to a current family member in the Orange County Fair and Event Center family, one who has been a family member since 1969, was troubling. I believe it was ordered to be brought back for discussion last fall, and I don't believe that ever happened. Now Spectra is asking for help again to help the hundreds of small businesses who have been directly and severely affected by COVID-19. Yet, instead, you are considering loaning a different fair $5 million. That is almost 1,000% more than Spectra asked for. Del Mar operates a fair that has become very limiting in recent years. They limit their revenue through restricting policies. The last time I attended was 4 years ago. At that time, I was expected to stay in a small area if I purchased a beer or actually any alcohol. I was not free to wander the fairgrounds. I was not free to watch kids in line for the rides. I was not free to wait in line for food myself. I could not leave the area with my drink. It was very off-putting to fair patrons, and everybody was complaining inside of the little gated area. It also seemed to severely limit their alcohol sales. Needless to say, we never returned. Please remember that you have an on-site partner who is asking for help to support their hundreds of vendors and thousands of employees during this COVID-19 time. The Orange County Marketplace is asking for help to the tune of a lot less than $5 million. Remember, as the Del Mar board has said repeatedly today, we are all trying to survive the effects of COVID-19 as well as stabilize our businesses. Spectra is trying to survive as well as stabilize the hundreds of small businesses that rely on the marketplace. Thank you.
Thank you, Janine. Mike Robbins, when you are ready.
Hi, this is Mike Robbins. Again, we've been a fairgrounds vendor for 40 years. And I'm surprised to see this is on the agenda and not the marketplace. I mean, we're helping our neighbors, and we're family. We're family that lives in the house with the fairgrounds. I mean, we're a part of the fair family who lives here, and we're going to help the neighbors first. I don't quite get that, but I want to back up Janine. A fair is like the fairs are a lot like a Mardi Gras. It's party time, but the Del Mar Fair has become they're prohibitionist. They're restrictive. They've cut the money making element of their business, a big part of it, and now they're asking money from the OCFEC that is a Mardi Gras. And I'm not sure if that's the right move to make unless they drop their prohibitionist attitude and open it up like us so we can, you know, deal with them on a fair market value. The question is, I mean, they're on the agenda and we're not. Are we just a second thought? We've been there for 50 years and we need some help at this time. If you're going to give them, you can't give them a bunch of money unless they're not prohibitionist. They have to bring up their numbers, and that's the way to do it. You have to deal with the family first. That's what you do. You deal with family first, then maybe you help a neighbor. And a contract that gives 0 rent for 6 months to the Orange County Marketplace is the move that you need to make. That's going to support our neighbors, the neighbors of the fairgrounds, our fairgrounds, and it's going to support the vendors that have been there for decades. That's the move you have to make. First you do that. First you make sure that's okay. First you make sure family's okay. Then maybe you help the neighbors too. But the neighbors can't come begging for money if they're not going to deal on the same level you are as far as the monetary purposes are concerned. And that's the prohibitionist attitude of the Del Mar Fair. And I want to come back to that. And I think you take that into account, give them the money if they drop back on their prohibitionist activism, and start making money like the Orange County Fairgrounds, and please deal with the family first that lives here, and then with the neighbors. I hope you take that into account in any of your decisions, and I hope to talk to all of you again soon. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mike. Reggie Mendicus, when you're ready.
Hi, I'm Reggie Mundicus, and I'd like to start off saying that I've been to the San Diego County Fair a number of times and have greatly enjoyed it. And I understand why you limit alcohol to only certain areas, and I think it's a good policy, and it's very similar to what Ventura County Fair does. I am just really, really struggling with this request today for a number of issues. I don't understand how the fair with the 6th highest attendance in the nation is now financially insolvent after being asked to take 2 months off. And I'm also very troubled that you came in with an ask for a large amount of money with a plan to pay it back in 5 years, basically asking us to negatively amortize the loan for you. That to me looks like you're not able to pay it back. So I did a little bit of digging, and I found out that in December of 2019, San Diego County, the 22nd DAA had only $5.4 million in unrestricted cash reserves, which is really bad considering you have about $81 million in revenue per year. Your 2019 year was basically break even, which is bad. You are not able, the 22nd DAA is not able to generate enough cash to build up reserves, which is why they were out running around to their neighbors asking for money after only 6 weeks of problems. The 32nd DAA has been prudent in financial management and in building up their cash reserves. What's also happened is that there's a number of projects that have been undertaken to improve racing of horses. Horse racing is a dying industry, and quite frankly, horse racing is a drag on the finances of the 22nd DAA. The faster you get out of that market, the better off your finances are going to be. I am also troubled that the 22nd DAA asked for money without bringing forward their financial statements. There are many questions regarding why this money is needed now, especially considering how large a fair and activity the 22nd DAA puts on. So I am going to say that this is not something that the 32nd DAA should be lending money for. I am deeply concerned about the insolvency of the 22nd DAA. While there is a network of California fairs, quite frankly, when changes happen, we need to let them happen. And if some fairs are unable to maintain their solvency in their current status, changes need to be made to both management and to the way the fairgrounds are structured and the activities at the fairgrounds to make those fairgrounds solvent. And rather than running around looking for stopgap funding, the 22nd DAA should be looking at how they are going to radically alter their operations to make them solvent in the long run. So with that said, I'm going to close out my remarks, and I just have a ton of questions about why you need this money. Thank you.
Okay, next we have Vincent Pohlmeyer. Vincent, when you're ready.
Thank you, Summer. I just want to start off by saying, with all due respect to President Valdez, his statement that this all started in March is wrong. The 22nd DAA has been yoked to the thoroughbred racing industry for a decade. The thoroughbred racing industry in California has been in steady decline for decades as well. There is no Hollywood Park anymore. Santa Anita is, setting aside the problems they have with horse death, Santa Anita has been having financial problems year after year after year. And as Reggie just said, you know, when you start looking at their financial numbers, they've been spending every bit of money they make on new facilities, many of them, the majority of them it appears in terms of dollars, for horse racing. They've got very low revenue. And what I saw, these slides were very, very pretty, but what I didn't see was any numbers explaining how they're going to actually pay for, how they're actually going to pay this money back. I would just point out that the agenda, the thing that's on the agenda for here today is a consideration and vote on whether or not to approve a line of credit agreement with the 22nd. Based on what was presented, there's no way in good conscience anyone on this board can vote to approve that today. And even in their ask, they said, well, they want to come back in June after they've given us the numbers. The bottom line is, I don't see, the bottom line is that we went and looked at the public numbers that are available for them, from their meetings. And they're a very troubled organization, a very troubled organization. And much like the marketplace, they've got financial problems. The COVID-19 is being used as an excuse for long-term ongoing financial problems. The 22nd DAA is our brother, or as I said to someone, our brother-in-law. But when you loan money to your brother-in-law, you better be one of two things. You better be prepared to never see it again, or you've got to put everything in writing and plan for how you're going to get the money back when he doesn't pay you, not if. And that's the situation I'm afraid we're in here with the 22nd DAA. With all due respect to their best intentions and the lovely fare they may put on, the fact of the matter is they had financial problems before March, and COVID-19 has just simply laid those bare. And unless we're prepared to give them $5 million out of the money that this fairground has and this DAA has very prudently put away for an emergency, I don't see that, we can't approve it today, and I doubt we can approve it in a month, even when they finally give us the financial numbers they should have given us by now.
Thank you, Vincent. Chair Cervantes, that's it for public comment.
Thank you. Bring it back to the board for comments.
Yes, Chair Cervantes, this is Director LaBelle. I have kind of a series of questions for Chair Valdez and the CEO. Some of them are based clearly on the comments we heard from Reggie and Vincent. You had mentioned that there is a $20 million gap, and you have to date closed that $20 million gap to $5 million through a reduction in your cost, and B, $5 million from outside sources. Can you articulate what those outside sources are?
This is Carlene Moore, Deputy General Manager. And what those sources are, it's a variety of things, including donations and grants from our Friends of Fair nonprofit, also our JLA, as well as the securing of revenue streams that we do still have in terms of leases, horse boarding, and other things that have really brought that and round out to approximately $5 million in revenue streams that we will still have coming in, and that our confidence level is very high in those streams. Some of our, for example, some of our partners here on the fairgrounds receive PPP loans, and then they use those to pay their rents, their rent and lease payments to us. To your point of, thoroughbred racing, it is still happening here this summer. At this time, they're anticipating a meet without patrons. What that does is that impacts our food and beverage numbers from horse racing, but ensures, of which they've already made an advance payment on, their rent for this year.
What are you assuming will be the rent that'll be generated by the Del Mar racing season, given its reduced scope?
Rent is $1.25 million.
Okay. I think the third component you'd indicated was CDFA. Do you have a firm commitment from Food and Ag for that $5 million in terms of the funds that are going to be available to the network of fairs? Or is that still up in the air?
We don't have a firm commitment as of yet. Obviously, with the governor's, the May revise is still in discussion, now with the state legislature. And so we don't really anticipate knowing that until obviously once the budget is signed and finalized, whether the $40.3 million for the network remains at that, if it increases, if it decreases. But based on the governor's comments that went with that, and that money being portioned to the state-affiliated fairgrounds, in other words, the district ag associations, and that money is planned to help with the expenses of payroll costs and associated costs with that. We think we are conservatively estimating ourselves at about at 5 million of the 54 DAAs in the state of California, based on our size. Between the two of us, yourselves and us, we comprise 50% of the civil service employees in the DAAs.
That was my next question. What is your current full-time staffing allocation?
So our payroll costs are about 1.6 million a month, and we have 158 civil service employees.
Okay. Now your debt service, how much of, I think I think Reggie mentioned it, that the balance in December was about 5.3 million in terms of unencumbered funds. What is your current debt service in terms of the facilities you've built there, and how do you anticipate meeting that debt service with or without help?
Sure. So with regard to our bonds and our bond payments, every year in December, we place the payment for the following year goes into our trust account. And so as well as there is a reserve fund of a year's worth of bond payment. So we are currently outside of our unrestricted, the bond payment for this current year is already in the trustees' hands. The bond payment, what could be used for the following year for 2021's payment, is also in the trustees' hands. And so we potentially are in a position of really not having, and that, by the way, is about $3.2 to $3.3 million each December. And so approximately 6.6 million is already in the trustees' accounts for 2 years' worth of payments. So that's part of our proposed plan to you. In addition to that, we do have, so the center, which Director Slayman spoke to earlier, the center, which we look to be opening later this year, first part of next year, between that and our water quality improvement project, which will be wrapping up hopefully sometime late this summer, but in this current year. We have a loan payment of approximately $1.1 million to make on that in this current year.
So basically, in terms of debt service and other obligations, you're essentially covered for the next 2 years. Is that a fair statement?
Yes.
Okay. What is the current interest rate on the bonds that you have issued for the improvements, and what is the amount of the bonded indebtedness?
So our bond debt is approximately 47 million. I'm not sure of the current rate. We're in the process. That's something we're looking to restructure for the future. That's part of what we're looking at with regard to our recovery plan, is to see how we might be able to restructure that going forward. But off the top of my head, I apologize, I don't have the figure of what our interest rate currently is.
Approximately 3%.
Oh, approximately 3%.
3%. Okay. I think that covers my initial comments. I'd like to, Chair Cervantes, I'd like to see what comments the other board members have before I have a proposal to make, but I'd like to see what my fellow directors think at this point in time.
Absolutely.
Chair Cervantes, this is Director Aiken.
Yes.
My comments are pretty brief. I really like the emphasis on connectivity and that we are a larger, fair family. I do truly believe that. And I've enjoyed working with the San Diego, the Del Mar Fairgrounds to promote and help our smaller fairs. I know that we've both sent staff to other fairs in times of crisis, like the NorCal fires, and believe there may be a time when we may need assistance of some sort from the Del Mar Fairgrounds. So I do want to thank CEO Tim Fennell and their board president, Mr. Valdez, for reaching out to us and the presentation that you gave. My concerns that I think have been addressed in part were, I do appreciate that you're not looking for any type of approval on this item from us today. Just for the record, we received this PowerPoint yesterday, and I know how long it takes to put these things together. So that's not a criticism in any way, but just pointing out the time we as a board have had to look at and digest the limited information that we have before us. My questions really are surrounding, what the terms and the interest repayment plan is going to look like. It's something obviously I would like to include and have run through our financial committee or another committee if it is determined that one of our board of directors may not be able to serve in that capacity. And I'd also really like to involve our legislative committee to look at how we can work together to get funding from the state and not really rob Peter to pay Paul by having other fairgrounds try to fill that void. I also have concerns about the fact that we share the same legal counsel. I don't know and have not had a chance to explore that with the Attorney General's office, but are we going to have to engage separate legal counsel? And if so, who is going to assume those costs and what do they look like as we are formulating any potential agreement? And obviously, we need to do an analysis with our staff and with our team about what is it going to look like and what are the impacts going to be if and when it does not get paid back. We hope that doesn't happen. But if this is something the board decides to go through, that has to be taken into consideration. So I realize that you have already fronted that it's not going to be a decision that you would like us to make today. I would not feel comfortable voting on it. I would have to vote no. But I am open to at least having it go through our committees that we have set up to do this type of work, to make a recommendation to the full board, which would require you sharing with us some financial information that I don't believe we have right now. So those are my comments, Chair Cervantes.
Thank you, Director Aiken.
This is Director Bonnery. I agree with the comments that Ashley has made. I'm going to say that there was no way I would have been prepared to vote on this today. But I think after our Finance Committee looks at it, the board has more time to look at Del Mar's financials and other things that we need to take in consideration. I would not be in favor of doing this until or unless we look at how to take care of our own facility and our vendors who are out there begging for our help right now. We had the opportunity to help Spectra earlier. That has not been brought back to us since then in any form. And I think we need to consider taking care of home as well if we're going to help someone else. So I really feel strong about that, and I'm glad we don't have to vote on this today.
Chair Cervantes, this is Chair Rubicava Garcia. And I just want to say thank you for bringing the presentation. It did provide a lot of information. I will also agree with Ashley on the fact that we did receive this yesterday. From an agenda item, it probably should have just been an informational item and something for the board to take into consideration at a future time. So I'm also glad that you understand that we probably have to table this. That would be my recommendation for a future meeting until we can explore all of the issues that come along with it. But I do think that we need to be taking these as two separate issues. The Spectra issue is not related to the Del Mar issue here. So Spectra is not on the agenda today. That is something that came up last minute. So I mean, just for my fellow board members, I think we need to make sure that we're taking these two items separately and not making the business decisions based on, them as one.
Thank you, Director Rubalcaba Garcia. You're completely correct. I agree with you that this should have been an information item and not an action item, since we did receive the initial ask letter on Friday right before the Memorial long weekend. And I think at this point, maybe we can go ahead and turn it back to Director LaBelle and see what he has that he wants to go ahead and
Chair Cervantes is Director. I just wanted to make a comment as well. I'm in agreement with all the other directors. This is a huge loan of money to loan out, and to make a decision today. Like we said before, we need to work with the committees that can work with us on this, and kicking it to the next month, I would really appreciate that, because I was not ready to make a decision either on this today. It's a lot of money, and like Director Bonnery said, we got to take care of our own first. I understand we got to be good neighbors, because one day, like Director Aiken said, we might be in need ourselves. We don't know that. And again, I'm in agreement in moving this to another meeting until we get more information and we get the proper committees that are going to work with us on this. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments from any other board directors?
Director Cervantes, this is Director LaBelle. I would like to move that this item be carried over until the June meeting, and in the interim that we look at various options available to the 32nd DAA. Anytime you enter into a lender and a loan relationship, there's risk associated with it. We need to evaluate those risks, what those risks are. We need to evaluate what the costs are to us. I think as a bottom line, if ultimately the board decides to move forward with this, there should be no cost at all to the 32nd DAA, and all of those costs associated with whatever documentation we have to put together must be assumed by the 22nd DAA. There's no way that you can absolutely guarantee that you are going to enter into a business decision with no risk involved. But I think there are mechanisms that could be put in place that would assure that for us. At this point in time, we just need a lot more information. We need to have some considerable dialogue. We may even need some outside financial assistance as we look at the debt service they have, and as we look at the structure of their indebtedness. We may need to have someone assist us in analyzing where they're at on that. I would move that we continue to explore this with the 22nd DAA, and if it's the chair's desire to appoint a committee to work on this with bringing in info back to the board, I would be more than happy to assist on that. That's my motion.
Okay, thank you, Director LaBelle. Do I have a second?
I second that motion. This is Natalie.
Great. Any discussion before roll call?
This is Director Bonnery. There was a lot to that motion, and I'd just like to hear it succinctly what we're voting on.
Barbara, what the intent of the motion is that we carry this over until the June board meeting, and in the interim, we explore all options relative to making any kind of loan to the 22nd DAA, and any costs associated with that ultimately need to be borne by the 22nd DAA.
Director LaBelle, is it possible for us to simplify that motion as the second and just say we can table this until the next meeting, until we've had further opportunity to explore detail?
That's fine, although I do think we need to be very specific as to what we're going to do between now and the June meeting. And there needs to be some direction from the board as to what we're going to look into, what we're going to explore, and we've got to come up with a risk assessment. Right now the $5 million is earning interest to us. If that interest has to be factored into any agreement. In any business decision you enter into, you need to make sure that you've compensated or you've covered yourself in terms of the risk associated with it. We need to look at what methods of collateral we're going to have, et cetera, et cetera. There's just a variety of things that, we just can't carry it over until the June meeting and not have done anything in between. That's the essence of my motion.
Yeah, to this Director Bonnery, I was okay with this restated motion. I just thought it needed to be a lot more succinct for the record. But I would also say if a committee is going to look at this, it should be our finance committee.
I would think, Barbara, you're correct there. But then we have the point that Newton made in terms of whether he's going to be able to assist in that regard or not. We have a brand new board member. This might be a good opportunity for Nick to get his feet wet, so to speak.
You know what? I apologize. I thought that was Nick who asked the question earlier. I did not realize that it was Nick.
Yeah, I think Newton's comment was that he asked of Josh that he might have a conflict.
In your iPad.
I thought that was Nick.
So it'd be up to the chair. The chair appoints the committees, and it would be whoever the chair wanted to have serve on that committee. But certainly the finance committee is the most appropriate one, but with the uncertainty with Newton there.
Yes, I don't have any problems whatsoever with Director LaBelle stepping in the event that it is a conflict of interest for Director Fain.
With that, I'd like to call the question.
Okay, please.
Are we ready for the roll call vote?
Yes, I call the question.
Chair Cervantes?
Yes.
Vice Chair Rubalcaba Garcia?
Yes.
Director Ruiz?
Yes.
Director Bonner-Reeves,
Yes.
Director Aiken,
Yes.
Director LaBelle,
Yes.
Director Pham,
Abstain?
and Director Kovacevic.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Working with you. Thank you very much.
Thanks, everybody. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, the next item is an action item, and Michelle will introduce this item. It's a consideration of and vote on whether or not to hold board meetings in the month of July and August, since it was previously voted that we were not going to have one because of the fair, and also to vote on whether or not to hold the June 25th meeting as an evening meeting.
Yes, just to reiterate, during the budget process at the end of 2019, the board voted not to conduct meetings in July and August as the fair was being held. But due to the fair cancellation and a lot on our plates, we're needing confirmation about whether or not the board would now want to hold meetings in July and August. And then also during that same discussion back in November, the board voted to hold the June meeting in the evening. So at this point, would the board want to reconsider, because of the stay-at-home still in place, that the June meeting be held during the day when more people have access?
Okay, thank you, Michelle. We do have 3 public comments, so I would like Summer to please call for those.
Yes, there are 3 members of the public, Vincent Paulmeyer, followed by Reggie Mundicus, and then Janine Robbins. Vincent, when you're ready.
Certainly. Thank you, Summer. I want to make 2 separate comments. One is I'll make the comments regarding the July and August meeting. It's clear that we're going to be in a situation where a dynamic, changing situation with respect to the opening of various venues and the opening of California, and changing and evolving deadlines and rules for what can and can't be done. Given that we're not in the normal status where we would be putting on a full-blown fair and the fairgrounds would be busy and much like, and given that we have all of this uncertainty, I think you should plan on scheduling a July and August meeting, just so you can deal with the issues that are going to come up regarding the changing environment. That being said, if it turns out that there's not a lot coming on, if we're still doing these virtual meetings, it can be a short meeting. Now, on the regards of the second item, the item of having these meetings in the evening, the reality is that we're now moving into phase 2, and some areas may be moving into phase 3 by the time of the June meeting. The fact of the matter is that I'm still working. Many people are still working. I had to take off time. Literally, I don't have any travel time to Costa Mesa, but I'm not working right now, and I'm basically taking off from work because I'm supposed to be, I'm normally scheduled for work at this time. So just because we're staying at home doesn't mean people aren't working. It doesn't mean that people necessarily have their mornings free. The bottom line is if because of the length of the schedule and the number of things you're going to have to consider at the June meeting, you think it might be worthwhile to have the June meeting as a daytime meeting and then schedule one or both of the July and August meetings as evening meetings, I think that's great. But the reality is don't use the fact that people are working from home as a rationale for why we don't have to have evening meetings. People working at home still can't take off time, or still have to take off time from work in order to be on this call and listening in and doing everything. It's not, you can't, believe me, you can't do both at once. So thank you, that's my comment.
Thank you, Vincent. Reggie Mendicus, when you're ready.
Hi, I'm Reggie Mundicus. I support having the June meeting or the July meeting or the August meeting in the evening. People are still working during the day, and it's important that we maintain our commitment to having more evening meetings. Now, we can choose which one we want to have in the evening, but one of the three should be in the evening. And, you know, while I understood the reason for not having the board meetings during the fair in July and August, now that we're moving to a virtual online fair, and also that we're in a very changing time where things change by the day, we do need to have July and August meetings. They could be shorter meetings where only certain items are updated. But I think that we need to stay together on this so that we all have the same information and we all understand where things are going, because things change so rapidly. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Janine Robbins, when you're ready.
This is Janine Robbins, and I would like to say I'm in favor of having the nighttime meetings. As has been pointed out, people are still working during the day, and as we get more into the reopening of the state, more and more people will be going physically back into their offices. The second thing is, I always understood not having the Fair Board meeting in July, but then in August it was canceled a few years ago because it was assumed that it was too much for staff coming off of the fair. So I think at this time, when everything is so uncertain, that it's important to have both the July and August meetings. I mean, they can be virtual meetings just like this. And I feel it's very important. And I'll be honest, I especially feel it's important with the uncertainty with Spectra and the marketplace contract. So it's important that we're kept up to date and that the Fair Board members are kept up to date on what's going on with that. And I think this is an unusual year and it calls for unusual circumstances. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. If it is okay with the board, I would like to go ahead and have two separate motions, if it's okay. One motion for the June 25th meeting, whether it's going to be held in the evening or whether it's going to be rescheduled for morning. And then another motion, a separate motion for July and August, whether to hold those two meetings. So any comments? Is there a motion?
This is Director Aiken. You know, I think initially I think that we at this point have to have meetings in June, July, and August. We might even be necessary to call additional meetings depending on what is going on. We are evaluating things and in contact with our staff daily, if not weekly. So I would be personally in favor of keeping all of our meetings, and then if we don't have anything on schedule that needs to be addressed, or if it needs to be canceled, we can go ahead and do that. But trying to make that decision right now when we have no idea where we're going to be in July and August, I think is extremely premature. And as far as the evening meetings, I'm in favor of keeping the meetings at our regular morning time. You know, I think we have had a meeting at night and we didn't see any change in attendance or different people attending. So I think it's something that, you know, doesn't really bring a lot of different voices to the discussion. And it puts a burden on our staff who then have to work a full day and staff us at night. So that would be the way I kind of look at this motion right now.
Director Aiken, this is Director Ruiz. Are you making that motion on the first one to have the meetings for June and July?
I'm happy to make a motion that we keep the scheduled meetings for June, July, and August 2020 in place right now.
So
I
but
second.
actually, I think there's two different motions that Sandra was proposing. So the first motion would be to keep the June meeting, but make it a daytime meeting.
Yes, for clarification, let's go with the July and August motion first. So
I second that.
the motion that, yes, we will have a July and August meeting. And can you...
For clarification, those would be during the day?
Yes, let me restate my
Correct.
motion. I make a motion that we schedule a July and August meetings in 2020 at our regular time of 9 a.m.
I second
I
that.
would second that. Oh, okay. Robert beat me to it.
So we have a second. Summer, can you call for a vote, please?
Chair Cervantes,
Yes.
Vice Chair Rubalcava Garcia,
Yes.
Director Ruiz,
Yes.
Director Bonaris,
Yes.
Director Aiken,
Yes.
Director LaBelle,
Yes.
Director Pham,
Yes on this motion, and apologize, I have a hard stop at 1. So if there is a second motion on the June 25th, I'm fine with either evening or day. Thank you.
and Director Kovacevic.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Now we're going to go ahead and address a second motion. And this will be for the June 25th meeting that is scheduled for the evening. And the motion will be whether to keep June 25th as an evening meeting or whether to move June 25th meeting to a morning meeting. Do we have a motion?
I would move that we make it a morning meeting and we have it on June 25th. This is Director LaBelle.
I second that, Director Bonaris.
Okay, Summer, can you call for a vote, please?
Chair Cervantes,
Yes.
Vice Chair Rubalcava Garcia,
Yes.
Director Ruiz,
Yes.
Director Bonaris,
Yes.
Director Aiken,
Yes.
Director LaBelle,
Yes.
Director Pham, if he's still with us,
Yes.
and Director Kovacevic.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Chair Cervantes, I have a third motion that I would like to make. And Natalie spoke to it earlier. The matter with Spectra is obviously a very high priority. They have received, at least informally, our communication. And the sooner we deal with that issue, I think the better it's going to be for all parties involved, the vendors, et cetera. I would like to make a motion that we have a regular meeting. I call them special, but Josh prefers that we schedule a regular meeting 10 days out, the week of June 8th. We could do it Thursday, the 11th. That's kind of a regular weekday meeting for us, and that we meet on June 11th for the purpose of addressing issues relating to the Spectra contract.
Director LaBelle, this is Josh. Before there's a second, unfortunately, we can't take action on setting that new meeting date today because that proposed date is not on the agenda. I think at the outset of this meeting, Natalie had essentially just asked Michelle to put the item on a future agenda. And typically, if the board ever needs to schedule an interim meeting between regularly scheduled meetings, that's something that happens at the staff level, and they coordinate schedules with board members and certainly provides 10 days notice to the public. So I'd recommend that that same process be used in this regard.
So I would like to speak to the CEO and request that she work with board members to identify dates the week of June 8th where we could have a meeting duly noticed to consider the Spectra matter.
And this Director Bonaris, I concur with that.
So noticed.
Okay, so the next item, Michelle will introduce. It's an action item, and this is consideration of and vote on whether or not to approve letter to area project management firms specifying process for applying for state approval.
Yes, at the February 2020 board meeting, Directors LaBelle and Rubalcava Garcia recommended that staff draft a letter to area project management firms that are involved in managing capital projects, informing them of the process to apply to the California Department of General Services to become approved to serve as an authorized project manager for capital projects here at the OC Fair and Events Center. Currently, only the Department of General Services and California Construction Authority are authorized to provide that service. And so staff has researched that process and drafted a letter, which you all received, that would go out to project management firms that are that manage capital projects. I should also add that through our representation through Gonzalez and Sons, just this morning, I received some additional information through them from DGS stating that yes, companies can apply, but that DGS would consider those on a case-by-case basis. So this is informing area project management firms of what the initial process would be for seeking authorization. And Director LaBelle, I don't know, or Rubalcava Garcia, if you would like to, add anything to that, but we were asked to draft that letter. The process was researched and it's documented in the letter. And the matter for consideration is to approve the language in the letter and for that to be sent out to interested firms.
Chair Cervantes, just to comment, I think the letter looks fine. And again, the intent of it for Nick, the intent of it is to give more options to the district in the future when we get back to hopefully building a lot of projects at one time. It gives us the ability to have more than just one firm. I have no problem with CCA, but gives us the opportunity to have more than one firm looking at construction management projects, and it just gives us the ability to have another competitive situation where we can look at 2 or 3 different firms. Hopefully there will be that many. So that's the intent of that, and I would move the recommendation. I don't know if there's any public comments on this or not, but.
Yes, Director LaBelle, thank you. We do have 2 public comments. So Summer, can you please call?
Yes, Reggie Mendicus, followed by Vincent Pullmeyer. Reggie, when you're ready.
Hi, I'm Reggie Mendicus, and I support this action. Thank you.
Thank you. Vincent Pullmeyer, when you're ready.
Thank you. I just want to start by initially saying how gravely disappointed I am that this board has decided to abandon getting input from people who have to work during the day for their convenience, for their own convenience, after doing it exactly once in January. Now, having said that, I have to say that I do support this, and I really think it's a good idea that we try to expand the pool of people that we can use, including trying to expand the pool among people who are local here in Orange County to help Orange County industry and business. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Now, I would like to call for a vote. Do we have a motion?
I so move.
Second, anybody?
Second, Director Ruiz.
Thank you, Summer. Can you
Chair
please call roll call?
Chair
Yes.
Cervantes.
Yes.
Vice Chair Rubalcava Garcia.
Yes.
Director Ruiz.
Yes.
Director Bonaris. Director Bonaris.
Yes.
Director Aiken.
Yes.
Director LaBelle.
Yes.
And Director Kovacevic.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. The next item is Director. He can be a doctor by now. Director LaBelle will introduce this item, and this is consideration of and vote on whether or not to change the current board committee format. This is an action item.
Thank you,
Director
Chair
LaBelle?
Cervantes. Thank you. Thank you, Chair Cervantes. I ask that that this be placed on the agenda. We've recently received, and in the past have received, communications from various individuals relative to the board structure makeup, and I thought it would be beneficial for the board to revisit our committee structure. The intent of the report is to pretty much outline basically the way we operate. We have 2-member committees that are advisory in nature only, and they are appointed by the chair. And they are designed to be to provide assistance to staff as they are working forward on various projects and programs that have been approved by the board. Any action required by the board comes back in the form of a duly agendized item under the Bagley-Keene procedures. Some of our committees are basically just inform the board of activities of Centennial Farms or Heroes Hall. Some of them are much more active, and I think we've talked about the governance committee, the facilities committee, and the parking ad hoc committee. Staff in early this year began a process of taking specific notes and then making that available through the committee to the full board and the public. They're in the process of refining that. Obviously, they want to make it as complete and thorough as they can. I would specifically mention that a couple of items that have in the recent past evolved from the committees as action items. One would be the governance policy committee, phase 1, that came forward as an action item, was duly considered by the board and approved. And the other one was the A4 Skyhawk project that was listed as an action item, reviewed and approved by the board. I'm sure there are variations that that are available to the board in terms of how we structure the committees or how the chair structures the committees. The intent, though, is to, they're intended to be advisory. Our objective is to be as transparent and as open as we possibly can, and be as communicative as we can on these items. But the intent of this is to facilitate moving projects forward. Obviously, I would think, this is just one director's thought, if you're going to go to a 3-member committee and they're governed by Bagley-Keene, and I would think in that case, we just might as well have longer board meetings and have those placed on the full agenda as review by the full board. So anyway, I just throw that out. The intent was to try to provide some overview on why we do what we do now, and that would conclude my comments.
Thank you, Director LaBelle. We do have 2 public comments, so I would like to go ahead and have Summer call for those.
Thank you. Yes, 2 members of the public, Reggie Mundicus, followed by Vincent Pohlmeyer. Reggie, when you're ready.
Hi, I'm Reggie Mundicus. A quick history lesson of how the 2-person committee structure became normal at the fairgrounds. Back when the fairgrounds was up for sale, the same management consultant that wrote the very strange and convoluted policy manual that made it very difficult to discipline an out-of-control CEO also told the board to go to 2-person committees so that they didn't have to share information about what they were doing with the public. So this is a remnant that is not normal in other organizations. So I agree with what Director LaBelle has presented, where the choices are to either go to a 3-person committee with the noticing required, or to go to no committees and just do it as part of the board meeting. I could support either. This is moving towards getting information into the hands of the public. Right now, it's a battle to find out what is being done with the public works projects at the fairgrounds. You have to battle to get drawings. You have to battle to get questions answered. We want to stop that. We want to get to something where there's a dialogue and where there's a more normal process, where there's public input and people can ask questions and we can work together on things. So I could support either doing a 3-person committee with agendas and noticing, or just eliminating committees and just having the board act on everything and having more openness and public participation on this. So thank you.
Thank you, Reggie. Vincent, when you're ready.
Thank you, Summer. I want to read to you from read to the board from a radical manifesto. It states, "The people of the state do not yield their sovereignty to the agencies which serve them. The people, in delegating authority, do not give their public servants the right to decide what is good for the people to know and what is not good for the people to know. The people insist on remaining informed so that they may retain control over the instruments that they have created." Now, that radical manifesto, for those of you who aren't familiar with the language, is from the preamble to the Bagley-Keene Act, California Government Code, section 11120. That's the law of California. The Constitution of California says that we have a constitutional right to access to the information. What is happening with these committee reports and is this committee, the current committee structure? And with all due respect to Director LaBelle, who I think I agree with his intentions. I think his intentions are in the right place. The summaries you're talking about, I haven't seen where any of those committee summaries have been made available to the public. In fact, not only not made available to the public, were never produced in response to document requests, to public records access requests. The problem is right now, all you have to do is look at the Facilities Committee report for this month's meeting, the one that was presented, where the Facilities Committee is reviewing plans about environmental maintenance, new structures, new plans which are going to impact the neighbors and the community, and giving the staff go-ahead, which, by the way, they represent to the public as the imprimatur of the board as a whole, giving them ahead. The board has effectively delegated, especially to the Facilities Committee, the authority to go forward on things without any public insight. I repeat that, without any public insight. So I say, I strongly, we need to either go to 3-person boards or bring all the materials, get rid of the committees altogether and come back to the board as a whole. Because right now the system in place, whether intended to or not, hides the goings on at the 32nd DAA, a creation of the public from the public. Thank you.
Thank you, Vincent. Chair Cervantes, that's it for public comment.
Chair Cervantes,
Thank you.
This is Natalie. I have a question. So, Doug, can you clarify what the motion would be?
So, Natalie, there can be a variety of motions. One could be just to keep the system as it currently is. One could be to modify the system to go to 3-member committees. One could be to eliminate all committees and just have all of the activities listed on duly agendized board meetings. And I suppose I would speak to Josh. get his input on it. But conceivably, you could have some sort of middle ground where, like we're doing now with the call-ins for the board meetings, if a committee meeting were to be held on Tuesday at 3 p.m., a call-in number could be posted 3 or 4 days in advance of the meeting saying there will be a committee meeting on this date. And anybody that wanted to call in and listen to the discussion would have the ability to do that. So I think that's also a variation you could get into. So it's totally up to the board. All I was trying to do was be responsive to the communications that we have been receiving relative to how the committee structure functions. Josh, are you there?
I'm here, Doug. I don't know if you had a specific question, but what I could certainly tell you is that even though these two-person committees that operate at the will of the board chair, that are not provided with any delegated authority, those committees do not need to comply with Bagley-Keene. Now, that does not mean that those committees couldn't provide some sort of notice to the public if they're having, discussions and want the public to participate. So to answer your question, there would be some middle ground. It certainly would be optional and the district could opt in. It wouldn't be required under the Bagley-Keene Open Meeting Act. Certainly once you move to three-person committees, regardless as to whether they're appointed by the board chair or created by the board as a whole, those three-person committees do need to comply with Bagley-Keene. And likewise, if the board as a whole creates a two-person committee and delegates authority to that two-person committee, it too would have to comply with Bagley-Keene. So those are the parameters as the board is determining how to proceed.
So, but Josh, the Bagley-Keene item for the three-person requires a public meeting, correct?
Yes, essentially the same requirements that the 32nd DA as a whole has to meet whenever it conducts its monthly meetings.
Okay, and a two-person meeting allows for work to be done with the board, two members of the board in collaboration with staff in order to keep things moving forward in between meetings.
Yeah, so long as that two-person committee is not created by the board through some formal action, but rather created at the will of the board chair. That's the critical distinction, because a two-person committee created by the board chair doesn't have any delegated authority to take any formal action on behalf of the board as a whole. So under that circumstance, yes, those two board members can have informal discussions between meetings with staff to keep things moving forward and then provide reports to the board as a whole for action items during the regularly noticed meetings of the 32nd DAA.
Thank you.
Just Director Bonner, just for clarification, Josh. So our standing committees, like the Finance Committee, Governance Committee, those could remain the way they are. It would be the ad hoc committees that are being created by the chair that could be in consideration for not having those, and everything would just be brought to a board meeting. I think some of the standing committees, it's a little difficult to have the discussions that we have within a board meeting, all the preliminary work that has to happen to become in every board meeting. We'd be in a board meeting all day. So I just want to clarify, the standing committees could remain the way they are. It would just be the ad hoc committee that we would be making a decision about.
Barbara, was that a question directed at me or for your colleagues on the board?
Yes.
Oh, yes, certainly certainly the board can take a hybrid approach and leave in place the more informal two-person standing committees. And then at the same time, the board chair, in her discretion, can also decide to eliminate all of the ad hoc committees. That's in her authority to do at any time, really, to create or terminate those types of committees. And so, yes, that would be a possibility.
Thank you.
So this is Board Director Rubalcaba Garcia. Doug, I definitely like what you've put into your into this item in terms of communication and bringing things to the board that require a vote. And I think that's kind of how we currently function. And maybe we can, as members of each of these committees, when we're working within the committees, maybe it is on the director's part and the person who's participating in this committee to be sure to bring it to the board. I'm not really sure at this time I'm comfortable making a motion to change anything. I certainly think that having the 2-person committees is effective. I mean, I sit on a couple of committees, and I think that there is a tremendous amount of work done between each of the board meetings to keep things moving forward. So that's my 2 cents. Is I don't, at this time, I think that based on what you put on paper, we can probably do a better job communicating out and making things action items when they need to be voted on by the full board, as opposed to making a decision. I think that's what you're saying, instead of voting to actually change the format.
Okay, does somebody want to make a motion?
Yeah, Director Reese, I'd make a motion to keep the committees as they are now. I think Director Rubalcaba explained it very well. Do we need to do, better communicating? Yeah, sure. We probably do. But, I mean, to restructure the whole entire thing, I don't think there's a need for that. I think it's working pretty well the way it is with the committees we have now.
Director Ruiz, this is Josh again. I'm sorry to jump in, and it might be semantics on my part, but if the board is going to not take any action in this meeting to change the way that the committee structure is formatted, it would then just simply remain within the discretion of the board chair. And so what that really would mean is the board shouldn't take any action on this item. My concern is that if the board takes formal action today, essentially to crystallize something that's now in the board chair's discretion, that act in and of itself may actually require all these 2-person committees to comply with Bagley-Keene. And so my recommendation would be, again, if there's no motion on the table to change what's currently in place, simply just to end discussion on this item and not take any action.
Got it. Okay.
Okay, so this item can be an information item and not an action item.
That is correct. The board does not need to take action on this item.
Okay, so are we okay with leaving this as an information item and not an action item?
Yes, I think we should move on.
Yes, agree.
Okay, perfect. All right. We do, or did we call for the 2 people that we had with comments? I'm sorry, I'm just a little tired.
We did.
Okay. All right. Awesome. So now the next board meeting will be June 25th, 2020. And I'm going to go ahead and call all the board directors for any matters of, or any comments. And I will go ahead and start with Director Reese.
Thank you, Chair. I don't have anything. I just want to welcome the new director. Just wanted to let him know that, whenever he needs anything from any of us, especially from me, I will definitely be available for questions and answers. And just want to welcome him on board and looking forward to working with him.
Great. Director Bonaris?
Ditto. Welcome to our new director, and I apologize. I am going to have to learn how to pronounce your last name. And I also stutter at times, so that makes it difficult. So just forgive me if I call you Director Nick.
Fine by me.
But welcome on board. We're glad to have you. We have one slot left now to fill to be a full board again. But we're happy to have you, and we look forward to working with you. And I hope everybody's staying safe.
Director Aiken?
Thank you. I hope everybody is safe and well. Welcome to our new director. And if you have any questions or anything that you need help with, contact Director Ruiz.
Director LaBelle? Director LaBelle?
I was
How
muted.
about Director Pham?
No, I'm unmuted now. I was muted.
Oh, great.
I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Congratulations to Director Nick. I think you got a good flavor today of the variety of issues that we deal with as a board, and I ditto everything that Barbara and Robert and Ashley said. Feel free to call me, and we'll chat at any time. I do want to wanted to ask you, Chair Cervantes, with Newton's comment, if that conflict appears to be substantiated, is it your desire to appoint an alternate to serve with me in terms of discussions with the 22nd DAA?
Yes, I would like to go ahead and have this conversation after the board meeting, if it's okay.
Let me ask Josh. Josh, a question for you. Wouldn't Chair Cervantes need to make an alternate appointment now at the board meeting?
Yeah, I think the short answer is yes. Director Cervantes couldn't speak with more than one board member at a time outside of this meeting. And so, Chair Cervantes, if you have somebody in mind that you'd like to replace Newton, you can certainly reach out to that board member directly, but you certainly wouldn't be able to have any direct discussions with the two committee members at the same time. And so if you have somebody in mind to replace Director Pham now, then you could certainly make that designation today. Otherwise,
so Director LaBelle, the answer is yes.
Sorry to prolong this meeting, but don't we need to confirm that there's a conflict of interest before we make that modification? I mean, Newton, just because they're a client of his bank, he may not have any direct relation to them.
Well, what we can do, Natalie, to avoid any further delay is Sandra can simply make the decision that in the event there is a conflict of interest, which we'll work on over the course of the next few days to determine that. If in fact there is a conflict, then Newton will be replaced by another director, and she can identify who that director is.
Just for this one.
So in the event that there is a conflict of interest with Director Pham, then yes, I approve for Director LaBelle.
Well, no, that just gives us one director.
Well, Josh, this is Director Aiken. Couldn't the chair also just put together, instead of expanding the purview of a standing committee, just put together an ad hoc committee just to deal with this limited issue, since it is of a very limited nature and time scope?
Yes, she certainly could.
That's a good alternative.
Okay, my preference at this moment, because we don't have a specific time frame when this conversation and this vote is going to go ahead and take place, I would like to go ahead and wait for further information on Director Pham and the conflict of interest.
The only comment I'd have on that, Sandra, is we have carried this over until the June board meeting, when whatever committee comes up with whatever thoughts they have would come back to the full board. And without some sort of direction in terms of an ad hoc committee, be it myself and Ashley or whomever you wish to appoint, then there's not going to be anything that we're going to be able to do.
Okay, then I would like to go ahead and identify our newest director, Nick. And Nick, I can't pronounce her last name as well.
Pasovich.
Thank you. Okay, Josh, does this work?
Yeah, so just to, so that, I mean, it's in your discretion. So are the directors on this committee Doug and Nick?
That is correct, yes.
Okay, yeah, that's in your discretion. That, so long as it works for you and those members of the board accept the responsibility, I have no objection.
The ad hoc committee, right?
Yes, it would be.
Right.
So Nick, do you accept the responsibility?
Yes, I do. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Director Cervantes, this is Director Bonaris. I just have a quick comment. The Finance Committee only has one member right now. Couldn't we just go ahead and get Nick appointed to that committee
Director Bonaris,
Well,
the Finance Committee does have two members currently, Director LaBelle and Director Pham.
My bad.
Yeah. So I think this is an ad hoc committee.
Can we
to
carry
work-
this discussion for later? I don't think that this is the time and point to continue discussing this, if it's okay. So if I can go ahead and move and ask for, let's see, Director Rubalcaba Garcia, if she has any comments.
No comment. Well, just wanted to welcome Joan and congratulate her on her position. Excited to have her on board, and that'll be good support for Michelle as well. I also just wanted to thank all of the staff for everything that they're doing. I know working remotely is not ideal, especially with the work that you guys do. So Ken and team, thank you for everything. Michelle, and then welcome Nick. It's good to have you on board, and I think this will be a really good ad hoc committee for you to get your feet wet. So
great. How about you, Nick? Any comments that you would like to go ahead and say?
Yeah, so
Monique?
First I'd like to thank everyone for the warm welcome. I started with the staff at the fairgrounds and the management team and CEO showing me around, getting me acquainted with everything that's going on, and escalating to this meeting and hearing from the public, who obviously are very important to this organization. I believe we're here to serve the public, and it's great to hear some of the voices and some of the comments and get a better picture of where the desires and issues are, so we can properly address them. And lastly, thank you to the rest of the board directors. Everybody has been very welcoming. Several of you have reached out to me, and I appreciate that. And I am certainly going to have some questions and be looking to many of you for advice. So I appreciate you guys being willing and able. And lastly, thank you, Chair Cervantes, for appointing me right away to an ad hoc committee. I'm excited to get involved, roll up my sleeves, and see if I can help. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Director Nick. I'm quite excited and certainly want to congratulate you on your appointment. And we're all very excited to work with you. And Michelle and her team, Ken, Joan, congratulations to everybody. And thank you so much for all of your hard work and your great work as well. And our community at large, thank you so much. Stay safe and healthy and optimistic, and wishing you the best. This meeting has adjourned. Thank you, everybody. Goodbye.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.